There we go. I see it. Okay. And are we on with cable 8?
We are.
Okay, good. All right, I'll open the Bellingham Conservation Commission meeting for June 12th, 2024 at the Municipal Center and online Zoom in a limited basis. And repeat that the Zoom, policy of the town is now for all meetings to end Zoom participation to the public. However, they can attend the meeting in person or view it on cable 8 as a way of remotely accessing the meetings. That is a policy change that was made townwide for all committees as of May 22nd, or May 20th, rather, the board meeting of the selectmen. Also, for the Concom purposes, anybody online, myself as chair is the only one online for the commission. We will be doing all meetings by roll call as long as there's at least one participant online. That's a requirement. So we'll just be doing that way as we did the last meeting. And I believe that concludes the general announcements, except today, as of today at noon, the town changed the town website and updated it and upgraded it, which caused changes to the Conservation Commission page, as well as potentially other committees and departments subpages within this. So as a result, the portal access, which is accessible to the members, was disrupted and not available currently as of today, which may have impeded some of the members from getting reviews of documents that were received recently and other information, which we'll discuss during the meeting if that's an issue and try to work around that. Also, for the public, those that wish to look for the agenda or previous minutes from meetings that were normally posted on the Conservation Commission website or via the Town Agenda Center, which is a new part of the website for the town, that lists various committees and departments' agendas and minutes. The Conservation Commission's agendas and minutes have not been made available. Those have not successfully transferred over to this new portal. And we apologize for that confusion or inconvenience that might have caused. People can certainly still attend the meeting tonight. They're not restricted from that, but not seeing the agenda today, if they were looking for it, could have caused some confusion. It was up yesterday, but not today. And we will be working with the town IT department and staff to restore full access and all features that we had previously to the website, both for the Concom and via the town main website links as soon as we can do that. But this is a new change that the town instituted, and we don't control all aspects of the IT, obviously. Hardly anybody does that nowadays. Anyway, so with those announcements, we'll move forward with the first hearing item, which is going to be 64 Fox Run Road, Notice of Intent. It's a new hearing for septic replacement. Shannon Delaney from Fox Run Road is the applicant. The representative is George Collins from Collins Civil Engineering Group, who I see looks like he's setting up there. George, welcome. We'll hear your presentation when you're ready.
Right. I'm Dave Clenner from Collins Engineering. George couldn't
Okay,
make it.
Dave, thank you.
So Dave Clenner from Collins Civil Engineering Group. We do business out of 225 South Main Street in West Bridgewater. And we're here for a septic repair for 6 Fox Run Road for Shannon Delaney. I have this up on the board. It's a wetlands to the north and the northwest. These wetlands are delineated in designated in the green. And this was delineated by Brooklyn Road. We have Arnold's Brook to the west. And we have the 100-foot and 200-foot riparian in blue. This is the 100-foot, the 200-foot is out here. We have a 25-foot no touch in black, a 50 in orange, and the 100 in purple. The septic system is going to go in the back of the house or to the north of the property. It's going to go exactly in the same area that the existing septic system is. We're going to take out the system, replace it with a new trench and stone system. It will be completely outside the 50-foot buffer. It will be 108 feet from the high water mark for Arnold's Brook. The closest we get to the wetland is 21 feet. This is up the corner of the house. This would be the access point around the west side of the house. We just want to make sure that we protect the corner of the house with trucks moving in and out and machines moving in and out. There is a fence here that we have to remove a little bit of. The erosion control system is going to be an 8-inch diameter straw wattle. The straw one will start up here at Foxtrot. It's the red dash line. It'll work around the side of the west side of the house, 20 feet, giving access to the machines. And then it will work around the area of construction, ending at a fence. It shows it going a little bit south here, but it will end at the fence. This fence runs all the way along the property line here. So it will end at that fence. The system will not be mounted. It's gonna be the exact rates that there are out there as, so the flow will not be changed. And I can answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, commission members, you have questions,
Oh,
observations?
I forgot to mention that I don't even know if we could open the hearing because we have not received a DEP file number as of yet.
Fine, they're always late.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just can't close until we have the
Okay.
number, but we can open.
Commission members have questions about any aspect of the project?
Mike, I do.
Go ahead, Steve.
The high water mark, if you're installing the replacement at the same height, has the water table changed?
The water table has been established and we're meeting all the board of health requirements for the water table for the system.
When you say established.
It's been established through a perk test throughout to the field.
Recently,
Yes, it has to be.
thank you. And what's the delta between the bottom of the leach field and the?
It's right here in the cross section. We have a leaching field of 280 and we have one that, I can't, it's hard for me to read this. They're very small numbers. We have 245.93 and we have 250 for the bottom of the leaching system. It's right there in the cross section.
Okay, so a 5 foot delta.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What about material storage? You're gonna be trucking everything out and in live loading?
Yeah, the material storage is gonna be used as it comes in and put in as piled. We're just not gonna have enough room for, to store stuff on site.
Where you're gonna store stuff.
So,
kind of tight on
It will be
space.
dumped here and used or dumped here and taken out. You know, if it's not taken out, it will be in the way. So,
Okay. Board of Health is approved.
excuse me,
Has the Board of Health approved the plan?
I am not aware of the Board of Health's decision yet.
Okay, that is also a requirement prior to closing the hearing. Obviously, we would not approve something that hadn't been approved by the Board of Health. So, any additional questions from Concom members about the project?
Oh, I've just got a question about the proximity of that existing pool and deck within the 50 foot, but,
You know, do we know when those are
Like-
put in?
I'd like to see the permit on that, I think, but,
Yeah, that's, well,
it's hard up on the 25 foot too.
yeah. I'm not gonna ask the applicant's rep to speak on that because he may not know nor care to comment on that, not required to, but that might be something for, I assume a permit would need, do you think building permits are pulled for pools and decks like that? Are they considered permanent enough structures to require?
Oh, yeah,
a permit?
pools, even above ground pools, that's an above ground
Also,
from the looks of it.
I suspect with the deck around it, although it could be a ground level deck, I don't know. Is the pool an in-ground pool there, do you know?
I am unaware of the,
It looks to be above ground, those oval shapes are usually like that.
Yeah, usually, I was just wondering if the applicant's rep has been on site and actually seen the backyard there, he's commenting about it, whether he knows if it's in-ground or not.
I don't know if it's an in-ground. I have not been on site. I'm just,
Okay, I didn't want to put you on the spot, I just wanted to see if you knew.
I normally go on site, but it's quite a ways up here.
I don't know if Hannah, you want to just check with Tim and see if a permit was pulled for it, and if so, you know, they shouldn't have permitted it that close to the 25 foot, I would think, without at least coming to us. But it's in place, so at this point in time. Hold on, please.
We want to see the permit. That's all I had.
Sorry about that. Yeah, dear. Little interruption there. Okay, so we're good. Fine. Okay, if there's no other questions or comments about this, I'll accept a motion to move to issue an order of conditions contingent on receiving a DEP file number, and a successful, approval by the Board of Health. Which is, I believe, the way we usually condition somebody. Am I leaving anything off there, Hannah? Or is that pretty much what you were expecting?
And plans if they changed. Based on the board of health. Yeah.
Right, any change to the Board of Health plans or to the final set of whatever we receive from them would obviously require a re-review of it from us.
So what's the purpose of the motion, Mike, to
Well, we usually move on.
start
something like
preparing
this.
the order?
Don't we usually move on this part, or you just want to continue to the next meeting? I'm open to suggestions. Somebody can make a motion whatever way they want. I'm just thinking there's no more questions, so we need to move it either to continue to the next meeting without any further action and wait to get those changes, if anything, in the approvals and the DEP number,
Yeah.
or,
Given there's no DEP number and there's no Board of Health approval, I think we should continue.
okay, I'm open. That's a motion by Neil, I hear. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, I
Ariane.
can't tell who made the second, but hopefully it's for the minutes, just say.
It's me, Ariane.
All right, I can't tell, your voices are sounding kind of muted, so you're gonna have to say who you are as you make the motions or seconds, please. All right, so we have motion and second. Any other comments, questions? All right, all in favor, Mike online, yeah, aye. Ariane,
Hi.
Noel,
Hi.
Steve,
Aye.
no, Neil,
Aye.
James,
Aye.
Don.
Aye.
So it's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, since we've had a request from the second item on the agenda person applicant to defer theirs till the end of the meeting if possible, because they're having access issues, timely access issues. So we're going to jump down to the notice of intent continued hearing for 217 Hartford Avenue. 700,000 square foot warehouse BVW with impacts to land underwater, BVW bank. Under the WPA with mitigation of 39,358 square feet isolated wetlands and vernal pools under bylaw with mitigation. Jeff Curley applicant, representatives Brian Madden, and I see, yes, Austin's there today too. Great, welcome Austin and Jeff and Brian and other members who are sitting in the audience. So we've received very much this week feedback from both BSC on some points and comments that we've been reviewing for the last couple meetings. We received some June 9th correspondence, which went in the portal. And again, as I mentioned earlier, some of the members may have not had access to that information if they were looking in the portal for that, as opposed to being shared online in an email. And we also received a response after BSC's comments on the 9th, along the 11th, just yesterday, some comments, responses to the BSC comments from WS. So I think in order to make sure that the members have had a chance to at least hear the responses to the comments, if Jeff, you and company wouldn't mind covering your June 11th memo, as if the Concom members may not have all seen it, that would be helpful, just to run through your responses and the comments from BSC, since they may not have seen that email as well. That makes sense?
It does. So you're suggesting that perhaps the commission, for the
Well-
record, Jeff Curley with WS, should we?
Let me ask for a quick straw poll hands, and Hannah, you'll have to tell me because I can't see anybody's hands.
Oh.
Has everyone on the commission had a chance to see those two documents, the June 11th BSC response to comments 1 through 4 that we got from Matt, and the June 11th WS comments, which are yesterday?
Yeah, the one I sent on Monday, and then you guys responded on Tuesday, yeah.
So happy to run through those, Mr. Chairman. I wonder if maybe it makes sense for Matt to go through his.
Well, yeah, he
if
could
that's-
go through his and you could go through yours. So Hannah, is a sense that we need to do that because the commission members haven't at all had a chance to see that?
I think some may have looked at Matt's, but haven't had a chance to look at WS's response yesterday.
Okay, let's err on the side of having everybody had heard Matt even for a second time if they've read it. So Matt, if you wouldn't mind going first and moving up to underneath the microphones a little bit to get cozy with those guys, because I'm not sure that you can be heard in the back of the room there.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to make sure that you can hear everything.
We're all friends here. It's been a couple of years. at this
Preserve the
point,
spirit
right?
of the relationship.
Been a couple of years, yeah.
A
so-
couple, I mean, 15.
Matt Byrne, senior ecologist with BSC, peer review consultant to the commission. I do not have a copy of my letter that went out to you. Oh, it's nice to see, but you've copied in
I
the,
relayed the comment. for
Yeah,
you.
good.
Yeah.
so I think we're definitely getting close here. The remaining issues, so I'll just go in with the comments themselves, that Jeff reproduced in his response of June 11. The first comment regarded the vernal pools that were documented as part of the notice of intent filing 2 years ago or whatever. And the recommendation that they get filed with NHESP prior to the closing of the hearing, which was the last recommendation. And during the last hearing, we talked that through the challenge that presents from a logistic standpoint for the applicant encumbering the land with a potential certification when they don't own it. So the recommendation was that BSC recommends that the data that have been collected for the pools within wetland L, P, Q, and PVP 2057 be submitted to the Conservation Commission for its own review, so that the requirement to submit such data to NHESP for official certification be included as a special condition. So that gives the commission the opportunity to look at those data and just make sure everything's solid. We don't need to send Brian back out to look for salamanders before things dry up or what have you. So that feels like a good compromise between what I think the commission's goal is and so the realities for the applicant.
If I may, can I,
Please.
yeah, I was just gonna articulate our response. We've agreed to that condition and further to that, we've proposed or recommended some modifications to draft condition number 35, which is that we would, prior to commencement of construction, we had a requirement to submit them to Mass NHESP. We've added that we would submit that to the commission before going to NHESP. So that would sequence the submission of that data to you folks first before anything gets submitted to Natural Heritage. That's just a minor modification. So we've agreed to that condition and proposed some slight tweaks to the condition to address that. If that's clear to the commission. Clear, thank you.
I'll pause now for a second. Any commission members have questions about this first comment and or Matt or Jeff's responses?
Is that what you said?
35.
35?
35.
It's the letter, when you see it.
Yeah.
It's embedded right in there.
Oh, you've already put it
You
in.
can copy
Okay.
the condition right in there with the highlights were colored.
Hannah?
Huh?
Hannah, I asked if any of the commission members have questions, but I can't see if anybody's raising their hands or has anything that they want to ask about this first
They-
comment.
No,
They're all stoic.
it's pretty clear.
Okay, thank you. We'll move right along to number 2.
Okay, so number 2 is in regard to the conservation restriction. We went back and forth on that a little bit. So I think the intent is clear. There is WS provided a draft of the CR. I reviewed that. It all looks good. It is essentially a boilerplate CR that the state provides, so there's no surprises there. And my comment on the 9th was that the applicant should propose a mechanism for providing the grantee, the town, with adequate funds to facilitate preparation of the required baseline report and annual reporting, annual monitoring associated with holding the CR. So when any entity takes on a conservation restriction, they take on the burden of preparing the baseline documentation report and also annual monitoring to make sure that nobody violates it. And then enforcement and so forth. The conservation restriction itself includes language that says that, I have to paraphrase, but the grantor, WS in this case, will provide funds to go through enforcement. but it doesn't say anything about how the baseline documents and annual monitoring should be funded. So, so that's where, WS response comes in.
Yeah, we have provided a response. We think there's, I think the comment might have included some significant work. We think most of the baseline documentation report information exists in the notice of intent and any subsequent information we've provided. But we have indicated a modification to, is it condition 47, that would obligate us, LEC will prepare that baseline document report for the commission and submit that substantially at the same time as the vernal pool information that we'd submit. And so we'll remove that burden from the commission and that cost from the commission. We'll provide that baseline documentation report for your consideration review before going to record with the CR, which again, we've tweaked the condition 47 to address additional language to address that change to the condition.
Jeff, quick question. The 47.66 acres of wetland and cedar swamp in the southern portion of the regions as set forth in the plans of record is mentioned. That's what the conservation restriction will be recorded for approximately that. Is that those 3 highlighted areas on the plan set of plans?
Yeah, there is a conservation restriction plan that's included in the record. There are 2 areas outlined in red.
And there's
When
a
added
third,
together, Mr. Chairman, comprise the 47.6 acres.
okay, I thought there was a third one, small and right up to the right of the actual facility building.
That is one of the 2.
That's,
And then
that's one of
there's
the 2. Okay, I wasn't sure if there were 2 or 3.
yeah,
So
there's
The third one's the existing.
there's actually 1, 2, 3 existing. This would be 4 and 5 in terms of
Okay.
discrete areas.
how many acres are left on the site when you take away that conservation restricted area of the overall site? I don't remember the overall acreage and how much of that 47.66 plus the existing other 3 areas.
I don't know the answer off the top of my
Okay.
head.
Just curious as to how much that leaves the rest of the site. The other question I had was in both Matt's comment for adequate funds to facilitate preparation of the baseline report and the monitoring. The baseline report part, you obviously have said you're willing to pay the cost for that. What are considered adequate funds? Was anything stated in the draft CR that I didn't finish reviewing? Or is a figure have to be arrived at for what adequate funds are? And what is the length of the annual monitoring associated with this CR? Indefinite, 5 years? Is there a particular, again, I didn't finish reviewing the whole draft CR.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
So that task is typically something that is done in the course, essentially a field day, going around the site, essentially walking the perimeter, photo documenting everything you see and making sure that there have been over the course of a year, nobody has violated the conservation restriction with cutting vegetation or dumping materials or, trash.
Building things, that kind of
Building things.
warehouses.
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially it's an intern or your agent or something goes out and spends half a day walking site and then preparing a report. So it's not a big cost annually. But it is one that should be done.
So
And I
how's the
guess-
figure arrived at?
Well, I guess I would ask the commission, in your budget allocation under the town's budget, you're afforded a certain dollar amount related to expenses, and I believe you also have authority to spend your application fees and such on related things. It's my understanding that that's the intention of those funds. This isn't the only CR that the town has or the commission oversees on behalf of the town.
Right, one of the things I was going to recommend was if we didn't have figures like that, that we might want to, while use this as a boilerplate one that was recommended by the state and so forth, that we might want to, and you refer to some adjacent properties having been input into the CR proposal draft that you sent us, was that we might look to other CRs in the town. We have another item on the agenda, which is different property, but they are also doing conservation restriction for us. And we want to, I think, do the same kind of process, which is look at some other CRs we've had in town for years that seem to be successful and compare some dollar amounts / involvement and the wording and so forth too, so that we are, as you had put it in an earlier meeting, consistent for downstream users of the site, et cetera, and clarity for other Conservation Commission members and so forth down the road, if this comes up. So we may want
I guess
to tweak it in that way.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I guess I might just respond. We're being asked to provide the conservation restriction as mitigation for the project we're proposing. We're not intending to deliver the conservation restriction such that it burdens the town. We do expect there to be, and I think the rest of the town expects there to be, a significant increase in tax revenue for developed property here. I guess it's our position in this circumstance that this is, something that the commission is requiring of us, demanding of us in the form of mitigation for the project. It should therefore be something that's taken on by the town to administer and take care of its responsibilities if it's asking for restrictions like this as part of a mitigation package for a developed project. It's not been our experience elsewhere where we've funded this ongoing obligation on the part of the holder of the conservation restriction. We're providing.
And it may very
restriction on
well
the
be,
land.
Jeff, sorry, it may very well be that the other conservation restrictions in town also have not had that precedent set either. So I'm not saying that that's going to be the case here. I just wanted to mention that we may want to review that, compare it to some other conservation restrictions and make sure we're just being consistent. That's all.
I can tell you that
I
the ones that WS has provided to the town over the last 30+ years, the town administers and takes care of.
Right, yes. I know the other projects, some of them in that vicinity of the town. Okay, any other questions from the commission members about this second item?
Mr. Chair, can we go back to one just for a moment?
Sure, go ahead, Steve.
This is more of a question. Given you're going to submit the data to the commission prior to construction and prior to submitting the data for the vernal pools that you've collected to NHESP. In our last meeting, there was some discussion both relative to monitoring the performance of these pools as they're constructed or after for a period of time. My question is this. How long will NHESP take to certify them? And will the construction of these vernal pools begin prior to that? Or after?
Glenn, maybe you're gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, I think you're conflating two things.
Yeah, so it's a vernal pools.
Yeah, these ones that we're talking about, getting the data before the permit issues is
Existing.
the existing
Or outside of
that
the
are
project
outside the
limits.
limit of work.
Okay.
And I think you're thinking about the pools that are being
That are
created
being created.
as part of the
correct.
mitigation
They
package.
can't be
Those-
certified yet because they haven't been created, so.
Yeah.
But
there is no
aren't
data.
you bringing data taken to use to build that?
No, those four that we mentioned, LP, Q, and PVP 2057 are pools outside the limit of work that the commission has expressed interest in getting certified as compensation, as mitigation for the work that's being done on the whole project. And so it was a matter of like, do we make WS certify them, submit them for certification prior to issuing an order? And what we worked out last week is that creates a problem. And so get the data into the commission so that you folks have a chance to see that. I get a chance to see it and just make sure it's complete and it's gonna pass muster with Heritage.
Because
when it does.
National Heritage can take a while to certify,
It'll take them 2 years.
Yeah. so that's
No,
a
understood.
burden, I understand.
And
Yeah.
we understand the initiation of the process here would be us submitting that data to this commission prior to the start of construction.
And then doing the filing.
And we would
with National
file,
Heritage Act.
right,
So this potentially could mean, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, that as Matt said, and or Neil, that if the Mass NHESP, after you send them the data, sits on it for 2 years, you're not going to start construction for 2 years.
so the event that allows us to start construction is submitting that data to the commission. It was submitting the data to NHESP, that's what's been in the draft
Okay,
Question
I
number
just want
one,
to make sure I
now-
was reading that correctly, because you
Yeah,
could read it
now
two
that-
ways if you're reading it in a hurry.
The trigger event, if you will, that permits us to start construction is sharing that data with the commission. We will, once the commission is satisfied with it, we will ultimately then submit it to NHESP. To answer Steve's question, we could be under construction at that time, depending on how long or how much the commission requests additional information on. But the submission of the information, which, by the way, largely exists in the documentation that's on record already, would be the event that we need to complete before starting construction, submitting that to this commission.
Okay, and those are for the established vernal pool, vernal pools and the one PVP, which you're treating as a vernal pool, 2057. Okay. Back to Steve, does that answer your question about comment one?
More or less, yes.
Okay,
And to the point, Mike, I'm not aware that we have any funding mechanisms on any of the, I could be wrong, but I'm not aware that we have any funding mechanisms on existing CRs.
yeah, okay, that could be very well true. That's why just nice to know. I haven't looked at a CR from previous sites in a long, long time, so I just wanted to see. We can check that as we're finishing up documentation and finalizing orders of condition and so forth. Okay, back to comment two. Any other questions from any of the commission members
Or Matt.
or Matt?
I do have a clarification
Sure.
to provide. Brian, you prepared baseline?
Yes.
Yeah. There's a manual available from Mass Audubon Society for preparing baseline documentation. I think we understand. Yeah, right, so.
He's outlined a little of that in the response.
A little of it, and
Yep.
and what I was concerned, when I read the response, expected to compile existing record documentation and materials, notice intent, and all that stuff, that can all go into it, but it needs to be a contemporaneous evaluation of the property when it's signed by the Secretary of the Executive Office. So it wouldn't actually be, the baseline documentation isn't completed prior to construction, the beginning of construction, or what have you. It's essentially when it becomes official, the moment it becomes official, you're supposed to prepare that document.
Meaning potentially 2 years down the road, Matt, for clarification, when NHES might say, or a year down the road, when they say, okay, we
No.
looked at this now, give us.
No, NHESP doesn't have a role in the conservation restriction. That's the executive office of the,
Oh, right, that's what I meant to say, that office.
yeah.
EOE or whatever.
EOEA, DSC.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, make it easy.
Yeah, they do. And they change it occasionally.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, well, why not, right?
So Matt, what are you
It's just a
suggesting?
clarification.
What are you suggesting there? I see your point that this is, if they provide this baseline documentation report, as Jeff, I think, indicated around the same time as they would submit the other vernal pool information from comment one to us, which is prior to construction, as a triggering point potentially for construction to start. This baseline documentation report wouldn't be as valid at that point in time because it's too early on in the process.
I think, yeah, maybe the way this can just get past this is to say that prepare the baseline as you're thinking of it, with a collection of all that material and all of everything you've gotten to know about the site. And then just, within weeks of the secretary's signature, Brian runs out and does the border.
The last, would that be the second to the last item in their response, or in your comment? No, actually, it's under the response. On page 2 of 3 there, existing conditions narrative, that the contemporaneous one you were referring to, Matt?
That's right.
Okay,
So there has to be some sort of level inspection at about the same time that the document's prepared. It can't just be prepared from historic
Prepared or
documents.
recorded?
No, that's recorded, that's actually signed by the
Okay.
secretary.
So to be clear, that
Yeah.
the state will sign it.
Yeah.
It becomes real at that point. And then what Matt's suggesting is that at that point, that instant in time, Brian has to go out and take photos at all the bends in the boundary. And so
Those
then
two things can align.
everything that we control prior to them signing it, we'll provide to the commission. And then once it's endorsed, we'll go out and document photographic evidence at the corners, if you will, on the boundary. And then that's the last piece that slides into the report, and then it becomes official, that snapshot. So everything will be ready, absent the photos, because we need the signature from the state first.
Yeah, typically in these situations, we'll have like an interim or draft baseline documentation report and then just update, amend that when it's ready to go live.
And that draft is included in what's submitted
Yeah.
to the state for review, and there,
The state,
that's my question.
the
Is
state
there-
doesn't
it's typical
either-
for them to understand that there might be some slight tweaks between them and record?
the state doesn't review
Okay.
the baseline. It's for the town's future monitoring. It's basically, the photographs are the most important part to memorialize what the pre-existing conditions are along that CR boundary to ensure there's no encroachment or violation.
And with, yeah, and this would not be the 3 existing ones, just the 2 new ones, correct?
That's right.
Correct.
Okay, just for the record, just making sure it's understood. Okay,
Thing ones are pre-existing.
anything else, Matt, you want to mention about comment 2 there?
No, that clarifies my.
Any other commission members have any other questions or points about comment 2 before we move to 3?
Yay.
Go ahead, whoever.
All makes sense.
Okay,
If I may,
All right.
Mr.
Number
Chairman,
3.
not to belabor too, but I would anticipate that the commission would seek a response from BSC, perhaps some sort of a closeout memorandum in their role as peer review peer reviewer that allows the commission to move forward and act on an order here. In so doing, if there are elements of this draft condition that you think need to address the specific, I think we're open-minded to doing whatever is appropriate here. If you want to tweak this language to suggest that there's a sequence of events that occurs, we're happy to look at that, and
Okay.
that's it.
Are you referring, Jeff, to just comment 2?
I am referring,
Okay.
well, yes, in this
All right,
case.
that's fine.
Yep.
Okay. All right, moving on to comment 3. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, this had to do with the vernal pool, at wetland Y. Which is, sort of the nice natural vernal pool in the footprint of the project. And part of the proposal for mitigation of that wetland is, getting surrounded.
No, I am telling what to respond to this, provide this response, so I was calling Brian up to make sure it was right. Sorry, Matt, I'll move away.
It's just subtle intimidation. It's not-
How about drag Molly up too, just.
Molly, can you sit over here?
Talk about intimidating.
Part of the mitigation proposal is to, I'm losing the word, harvest, recover the soil from that vernal pool to transplant into WRA, Wetland Replication Area 6. And the purpose there is to theoretically collect invertebrate eggs, some of the soil and leaf litter, microbes, and other things, so you essentially get a good start to what you hope is going to be vernal pool habitat.
Like sourdough bread.
Correct, exactly like sourdough bread.
I'm gonna miss your comments.
In theory, like, this is a good, I think this is a good theory. It's relative, it's a little bit untested and, I hesitate to use the word experimental, but, it should work. It should, but it may not, who knows? Anyway,
My first question, my question before was, this is the process I had in mind, was,
yes,
because I remember from our workshops, the discussion of collecting or harvesting the existing soils to capture the life that's in that and then putting it back. Is that not construction of new?
well, I mean, I think
Is
that,
there data in that being submitted? Or am I crossing?
I don't think we've
I think
asked,
Crossing I think you're talking about the first comment. So the first one is related to existing vernal pools, which we are protecting and which will remain, and we are gonna document formally with NHSP. What Matt's talking about now,
I understand the
Yeah, okay.
separation, but isn't there data being submitted from what you're collecting, evaluated and explaining that?
we've not talked about collecting data. It would be challenging because WRA 6, if I remember correctly, is the existing wet-ish area with those, cedar.
Struggling seed.
Yeah, it's not, but, so that's not it's not a jurisdictional wetland, but it is, it's got those cedar and, had some weird soil and stuff. So we were gonna dig that deeper, so we were gonna dig WRA 6 deeper and use the soil from wetland Y.
I think he's asking if you have data for what and why.
So what I'm getting at is that's not data that's easily collected or interpreted, and we haven't talked about that throughout the whole process. We haven't made that kind of an expectation of this project.
So NHESP will they have a voice in this somewhat experimental, to use your vernal pool process, building process?
They will not. It's not a
Right.
certified vernal pool.
I apologize for not getting there as quickly and directly as I.
No, not at all. It's not a certified vernal pool. They don't actually take interest in that anyway. I think it was a local jurisdictional wetland, not state jurisdictional.
That's right.
And so even if they were interested in it, without rare species in it, documented in it, they'd have no authority to talk about it to begin with.
Okay.
And I think that's why this was on the table to begin with. I think it was a local wetland. And the commission was open to mitigation that tries to rescue some of that.
So 5-10 years down the road,
Yes.
what Brian does and WMS does works. And it turns into a fantastic functioning vernal pool on its own. It could be certified down the road.
Correct. Sure.
And then it would be.
In addition, then the 4 we are certifying present day that exists.
Once it's up and running and
But you
functioning,
have
it
operating
becomes a
data,
real vernal
historical
pool.
data on that.
Then we have data, then we have animals, then we have stuff, and then we could go to national heritage.
But you wouldn't know whether the transplantation of soil material resulted in the actual seeding of that wetland necessarily, because there's really no way, I guess we could do eDNA.
Yeah, DNA, yeah. Fairy shrimp
Ag the
DNA.
fairy shrimp eggs.
Well,
I mean,
I would say if
Jeff will pay for it.
fairy shrimp populates in year 1,
it would be a good indication.
yeah,
It would
it would be 100%.
Definitive, but anyway.
So,
yeah,
so I'd like to ask, maybe this is a naive question, but in my mind, when you're doing something like this, you define it up front and then you replicate it. So I'm listening and I'm trying to understand, has enough been defined so that it can be adequately replicated? And that's what I'm trying to understand, and I'm not there yet.
In the context of this particular wetland wide, yes, in terms of its function as a vernal pool, that's been defined, that's been studied for several years prior to submission of the application. All that data was provided to the commission. To Matt's point, it's neither state, federal, it's just a local matter. And we are replicating, in addition to 2.5, 2.7 to 1 in terms of straight up wetland replication, where are we at? 2.3 to 1 in terms of just regular wetland impacts.
24 in the room.
We're providing replication area or area that Brian and I think Matt agrees, something on the order of 24, 25 to 1 that has the potential to become vernal pool habitat over a period of time if we allow nature to take its course. This is one of those things that Matt identified early on, the relocation of the substrate from this existing wetland wide to one of those replication areas. It hopes that would help establish it a little faster.
Wetland, just a quick question for clarification, then Jem or Don, whoever's speaking, I'll come back in. Wetland Y, vernal pool, existing vernal pool, according to the LEC goals objectives for WRA 6, is proposed to be created as a forested scrub wetland with interior vernal pool habitat conditions. The bottom substrate from wetland Y, vernal pool, within the project footprint will be redistributed within the interior of WRA 6, which is what we've just been talking about. Just to be clear, and says, oh, also the existing Atlantic white cedar saplings that are stressed by the overhanging canopy will be retained and allowed to fully establish. That is within WRA 6, correct?
Correct.
That's right.
So basically, we're eliminating a vernal pool, wetland Y, because you can take the scrapings off the bottom of it in its pretty much entirety, correct? You're not just taking a little sample sliver.
No, the wetland Y is proposed to be filled in its entirety, has been
Right.
supposed to be filled in its entirety from the very.
Hence the
beginning.
desire to take everything that's good out of it and
Correct.
relocate it to area 6. Just
That's
making
right.
sure that
Rather
we're
than
all
just
clear on
bury
that.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. Yes,
Rather than just bury it.
correct.
Right.
Right. Okay. Back to James or whoever I interrupted, Don, whoever's asking those questions. You got satisfied answer there or?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah, thank you.
okay, good. Additional points from either Jeff or Matt about comment 3, and then we'll see
I
if
think you were
have
made
other additional questions about
Presentation on
3.
this. Steve asked your question, so I'll give you an opportunity to finish. Sure.
I think we hammered that one pretty good.
Okay, any commission members have any other questions or comments? Hannah, I can't see anybody's hands or hear anybody. Any? No? Okay.
I remember.
Ah, Matt.
What we were getting at, one thing I was concerned about was, we don't know when this project kicks off. But we do know that we don't want to go in there when there's salamanders or frogs and dig it all up. And so the point was,
You have moved on to comment number 4, just to be clear.
I think I'm on dries
No,
out,
he's-
proposed
we're
substrate
not
collection.
for yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna transition into 4.
It'll,
Yeah.
they're.
An elegant segue into 4.
Elegant segue. We're recommending that the applicant provide details regarding when wetland Y typically dries out and how in sort of actual terms, how that harvest is gonna be made. And so
And
they
stored.
responded. Say again?
And stored.
And stored, hopefully not stored long, may just moved. So what they responded was that it typically dries in June, late June. And should the transfer should be made in that dry period, which is correct. That's when it should be.
The idea is that
July, August.
July, August.
Brian could, go ahead, Brian, if you want to summarize. 'Cause
Yeah.
There's more to that response. as well.
So prior to the harvesting of the substrate, WRA 6 would already be prepped, excavated down to subgrades, ready for the receival of that soil. So it's not stockpiled and sitting in a stockpile for extended period of time. It's brought immediately over in between July and September when it's dried out.
Right, and that's stated
We
in the
hope to have
response there. Yeah, I see that.
Minimal, if any, storage. Steve is in there.
And obviously that's factored into the site work.
It will be because of this condition language, yes.
Okay,
And then, one thing, then we transition to 4. One thing I'm concerned about is the actual impact to frogs that might get in there. And so what I'm recommending is that by way of presenting a plan to minimize impact to existing populations of amphibians leading up to and during construction. And my concept is you exclude anybody from getting in there in the breeding season. After this breeding season, which will be done as soon as it dries out, anything that survived will be on its merry way. Then we put up exclusion fencing so that no amphibians can get back into the pond down the road.
Is that like a silt fence kind of?
Yeah, silt fence, yeah.
We're calling it a frog fence.
Made out of frogs?
And that can just be up essentially permanently until the work is underway, done, taken care of. And that protects a local population of frogs from getting in there and getting.
so Matt, in the response, they give timetables of November 1st and February 15th in the months immediately preceding substrate collection between July and September. July and September and November and February aren't very close to each other unless I'm not looking at the calendar that you guys are looking at. How is that going to work again? Could you just walk us through that?
Yeah, So the intent would be ahead of that vernal pool season in the winter months when everything's dormant. Encircle the vernal pool and maintain that barrier into the vernal pool season and beyond. We talked about inspections there to ensure that it's properly maintained. And so, as Matt was saying, the amphibians have the ability to find additional vernal pools elsewhere on the site, outside the limit of work, to breed in, but also, avoiding the scenario of emigrating juveniles and younger amphibians immigrating from the vernal pools. So basically, protecting that pool ahead of the vernal pool season. I think that's what you were getting at.
Because anything that did hatch that year in the pool and then was migrating out is being destroyed in the construction. Basically.
Right.
So why
From
go,
getting in there in the first place.
why go through that?
Brian, in the transfer of the harvested materials, are you planning a compaction process, or are you hoping that just by, when the water fills it, that will provide natural?
Good question. Where WRA 6 is located, that's a groundwater fed wetland vernal pool. So we're not compacting it, we're not adding.
So that throws loose by the nature of
Yeah,
water
it's
permeating.
very sandy and groundwater is coming up, based on the perk test. we put out there.
And so you'll just smooth out the material and it'll just settle naturally.
Yeah, we excavate below our desired bottom elevation, and then we're bringing in a foot of material to match that elevation. Our desired bottom.
And again, you're gonna be on site during this process?
Oversight is.
Yes.
Wetland scientist is supposed to oversee. We haven't, person hasn't been picked yet, have they? Too early on in the process.
We expect it'll be LEC, and then it'll, from a staffing perspective, it'll be up to LEC to staff it as a consultant.
Sure, okay. And that's all identified as part of the construction, pre-construction meetings and so forth, that would ensue down the road.
It's described in the draft order, and also a fair amount of detail on the replication plans themselves within the
Right,
plan set.
yep. Okay, additional questions or points from either Jeff or Matt before I open up to Concom members again for point 4 there, comment 4?
Are we on board yet?
Anything else?
I don't, again, I guess I would just reiterate, we have been
on for
proposed,
But we're in three.
no, the transition.
so
I missed-
3 and 4 were
Or I think 3A.
were somewhat related, yeah,
They were
so.
A and B. Yeah.
Matt segued into 4 because it was related in some respects. But in response to 4, we have, in our letter that we submitted, we have proposed some additional edits to draft condition number 39 in the draft order that speaks to the, it makes a specific reference to LEC's replication enhancement summary memo.
Summary, right.
Which has again been updated to
Right.
respond to some of this stuff, and would be a document of record in the decision here. So we've gone ahead and made a specific reference to that, or proposed a specific reference to that in draft condition 39.
And I think what we were talking about as part of this, just kind of bringing this all to a focal point, was having Matt provide just a written response to this document that we just went through, which I think effectively says, and probably more eloquently than this, yeah, we're cool with that now. And you had maybe some tuning of the baseline document to
Yeah.
make sure that that was clear and explicit.
Yep.
And then that becomes the closing, if you will, of those issues, and I think allows us to then move forward, presumably with the order at that point, because then these issues were kind of down to the really fine point. That's my interpretation of it. Is that consistent with how the commission feels as well?
I guess I would put a finer point on, to the extent Matt is providing comment, it is further revision to the draft, so I think it's
Yeah,
part of finalizing the draft.
yeah, but then I think my expectation or hope would be that Matt provides that letter.
Yep.
And then we'll be here at the next meeting. And that effectively closes things up, provided Matt's letter says exactly what we all just talked about here tonight.
that's potentially how it could work out. I have a question for Matt. In the June 16th letter to Jeff and WS from me, the point number 2 that I mentioned was, and I'm just asking Jeff, Matt, Matt, your interpretation of whether this has been met with what we've just been talking about, points 3 and 4. I said a detailed vernal pool mitigation plan with cost estimates is required / recommended. Your comment was BSC has previously recommended the applicant submit a detailed mitigation plan for the loss of the vernal pool wetland. Why? This should include a detailed construction sequencing plan that addresses issues pertaining to the timing of project initiation. The plan should address existing populations of pool breeding amphibians that use wetland Y, how impacts would be avoided during construction. Any plan for transportation of wetland soil, vegetation, or organisms should be detailed. As discussed in the field and public hearings throughout this project review process, the wetland Y mitigation plan should also include examples of similar work conducted, which we went through at the last meeting, and basically they don't have one. Everybody's just hoping this will work. But are you satisfied that that has all been met with what we've just been discussing with 3 and 4, Matt?
Yeah, I think that, the concerns that were put on the table in that series of comments have been addressed in this conversation and
Okay,
in the response from,
all right. I'd just like to make sure that's both on the record and that I'm hearing that you are
But also
satisfied with that
just-
part.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, just for clarity, we did provide a response on May 22nd.
Mm.
That was a lot of, it included an update to Brian's memo, which we further updated with this response, but a lot of that was addressed in that May 22nd submission, I believe.
Right, there was a
Yeah.
series of letters, right, yeah, and there was.
yeah, so I think at this point, we've gotten to a good place, and, ultimately, it does come down to the commission's determination that, yes, this is an adequate plan for mitigating the unavoidable impacts.
Right, okay, thank you. All right, I'll open this to the commission. Do you have any other general questions about the project as a whole? Issues, concerns, things that you're not clear on? Or is the commission's view that this project is gotten to the point where we can finalize the order of conditions in-house and then proceed to another meeting, either the next one, or if somebody has an issue, a subsequent meeting, and potentially close the hearing and issue an order of conditions? How does the commission members feel? And again, Hannah, you're gonna have to read the room. I can't see anybody's responses.
Last idea, Mike.
I think we can move in that direction, Mike, absolutely.
Okay,
But I think we should have one. I think we should have one hearing. In this process where we've got the final version in front of us and we can run through it at the meeting. And
right,
just,
I think it needs to be submitted. Hannah's and I talked about the timing of that, making sure she's not under undue pressure to help produce this document. She's doing 90% of the work on this, or at least 95% maybe. That a final check on in-house, both the language, some of the comments that WS has made in the past couple of meetings will be reviewed and potentially included in part or not, whatever, but be reviewed for consistency and so forth. So yeah, I think my expectation is the commission members will all receive a final version of what we plan to provide as the order of conditions prior to the next meeting, or the meeting after that. Again, that's where I want to make sure Hannah and I are on the same page and we don't promise it too fast and not have it done. But certainly to close the meeting at that point, the hearing at that point in time, and be able to issue something and have a meeting where we discuss any issues about the order of conditions, but only after the commission members have had a chance to look through it thoroughly before, because a multi-page document there in details. Does that make sense to the commission members? You'll get something prior to the meeting. We would have a meeting. We would see if there are any issues about the order of conditions that are going to be presented, and if none, then we would move forward to close the hearing and issue the order of conditions subsequently for signatures and move on from there. Any other? That makes sense to
me,
people?
but Matt, can you do it?
Well, I'm not doing much of
Choose your words
anything.
carefully.
Yeah, Matt would be involved in that process too, to make sure
Yeah,
he's
I
in
know.
final order of conditions as
I
well.
feel like we can. I just want to triple check what our what's going on the 26th, because I feel like if we're gonna go through it all, maybe the July 10th one, I think it's 10, would be smarter. We already have 2 things on the agenda for,
Is there a thought we should dedicate a meeting solely for that?
I'm not sure that we need to.
I think
dedicate-
I think if we get, my feeling is if we get the document with enough lead time before the hearing, we should all be comfortable with it. So I don't think we're gonna need to spend a ton of time on it, as long as we get it with enough time to digest it on our own.
Exactly, and to make sure that if you do have questions, you,
It is just, it's a significant document. It's a big project. We want to make sure we get everything correct before we send it.
I appreciate that, and I believe there've been a couple of turns of the draft that the commissions have been provided. Our last communication with some suggested comments and or revisions was back on May 1st. I went ahead and made a reference to that in the letter and included a copy of the document we submitted on May 1st. And I would just restate for the record, Mr. Chairman, there's been an awful lot of work done here. I think you poked fun at me last week about, or the last meeting, about my term downstream parties that are going to be digesting this thing for us. We would appreciate the opportunity we don't want to change meeting or depart from where we're landing here. We just want to make sure we get a clean, clearly stated document that's unambiguous and doesn't prevent any challenges for us with those downstream parties I've mentioned before. So if applicant can remain in the loop on finalizing.
I don't think that that's going to be appropriate to get the final document out, Jeff. That would be setting a precedent we've never done in the Conservation Commission's history, and I did check going back 30 some odd years with previous commission members. But your comments were very clear in the last couple of meetings, and definitely will be all considered in it. I don't think you will have a document that will be confusing at all. I won't say it's going to be perfect. I don't think any document would be, even with last minute feedback both ways, but I don't think that, I think that other commission members can speak up, but I think that's stepping in a precedent and direction to have the applicant be involved in the final document preparation. I think you've had plenty of chances to provide input. I do say again, it will be seriously considered, your comments and so forth, and consistency will be a goal for communication of stuff. But I think that at this point in time, the commission steps forward and you guys will get what we provide at the next meeting, if that's what the pleasure of the commission has. Any commission members have any feedback on that?
Michael, I'm behind you on that, and as much as I was supportive and welcoming of the working sessions, I think the final wrap needs to be done among ourselves. The applicant will certainly have opportunity to voice any concerns if there's any
There's an appeal process.
ambiguity for the downstream that there's a concern about, but
Well, if I may, I think we'd all prefer not to go through an appeal process. So I understand I hear you. Perhaps I don't fully understand. But in advance of the next meeting where this will be considered, can I confirm that applicant will be at least provided a copy with the document that's provided to the commission so that we have an opportunity to.
I don't want to speak out of
Coming
turn.
into
I
the meeting?
understand your request, Jeff, but I'm going to ask Neil and Hannah, do you recall whether that has generally been done?
But we're being asked to react live to a document that we're being handed as we walk into the public meeting that evening, is that?
When that you've had input on.
Well, granted, I don't know to what degree that.
We usually
input is absorbed at that point.
Maybe the hybrid solution to this is, in the response that we sent back yesterday, we included, as Jeff mentioned, for ease of review, what we believed to be the current version of that, edits, tracked and everything, right? What we've talked about with Matt tonight is having him edit further the suggested refinements to the conditions that were directly affected by the 3 or 4 comments in that response. Maybe Matt's response includes the refinement of that back to the commission. Ultimately, as Mike, as you pointed out, the commission holds the key to the final version, but the version that Matt suggests with his tuning comes back with his response. At that point, the commission deliberates on it. We're seeing that version of it, but the version that gets issued, signed and sealed is yours. At least we know what it was being modified further as part of that response to comment.
Neil, do you have a recollection of the order of procedure wise, that timing wise, whether the past administrator has provided a copy to an applicant of the final order of conditions prior to the actual issuance of it? I don't remember that being
I
the case.
don't
I think
recall specifically,
if not, we can do
it
that.
doesn't sound like, it-
Good.
I mean, the
Good.
document's not final until we vote on it, so even if we bring it up at a meeting and the applicant has. I don't think based on what we've just gone through and where we are with this document, that there are gonna be any. Big surprises.
No,
I don't think there's gonna be any little surprise.
I certainly don't expect there to be, I just,
Right,
Given
no,
the-
I understand where
I
you.
don't have any.
all right, I'm gonna make two
You
suggestions.
said I
One is
don't,
we-
I get it, but I don't understand it.
I think that we haven't done it in the past specifically to avoid situations like this where we go back and forth for
Okay.
months.
I-
And
I'm not asking to go back and forth any longer. I think the commission has afforded us the opportunity to provide comments. We're okay with that. I just, at this point, it's about getting it with a couple of days advance notice, so we're not.
Okay, since
Someone
timing
did-
since timing is an issue, let me just interrupt and say that both the timing for this meeting and wanting to move along, but also wanting to wrap this up in a way that might be good. I'm going to recommend that we postpone this for 2 meetings in order to provide plenty of time to both have the commission members review the documents, so we have as little possible issue when we do open a meeting to close this final, hopefully close and issue. And also to provide us a chance to check and see if there has been a precedent set where an applicant has received a copy of the order of conditions prior to the meeting where it is actually issued, we will do so and provide that for you. And that would give us time to check into that without having to rush to do that while we review and finish tweaking the document in a manner that will provide hopefully the absolute least surprises or even minor tweaks that would be needed. The commission and or Hannah, how do you feel about that? We put it off till not the 26th, but what's the first date in July?
July 10th.
We also have a couple items, as Hannah has mentioned, on the agenda already for the 26th, not that it's that full, but how does the commission feel about that? You'd have more time to review this document. We would have time to see if there is a precedent for issuing and providing that copy to the applicant prior to the meeting, which I don't have a initial reaction negatively to doing that if we get it done, but that also allows us more time to make sure it's a really completed document for the applicant as well as for ourselves.
Yeah, I don't personally, I think that's fine. I don't personally have a problem with giving the applicant a preview of it. I mean, that's gotta be the finished document, unless they had, and again, some serious problems with it. And I don't think that's gonna be the case, so but that gives us time to do it right and not rush it and.
Anybody else? Hannah, how do you feel? You're the one doing a lot of work.
I feel the same way. I
Okay.
think we're in a good place.
Any other commission members? I can't see, but anybody else has any input they want to make? Thumbs up. I see a thumbs up. That's good. Like to see that. Okay, so I'll accept a motion to continue and hopefully close this meeting, this hearing on, to the night of July 10th at 7 p.m. and hopefully issue an order of conditions at that time.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Somebody
Noel,
speak up, I think for the record. Okay,
Steve moved, Noel seconded.
thank you.
And Felton, now it's-
Okay, as long as that could be heard by the recording secretary, I couldn't hear it. Okay, a roll call vote. Noel,
Aye.
Ariane,
Aye.
James,
Aye.
Steve,
All right.
Don,
Aye.
Neil,
Aye.
Mike O'Haron, online aye. So unanimous vote. So we'll see you gentlemen on the 10th of July and ladies, and thank you very much.
If we do that, I'm bringing fireworks.
Yeah, bring fireworks, you can celebrate.
Quick question.
Yes,
Not off topic, well, kind of. When did you guys originally come in for the shops?
It was like 2007 or 2006.
2006. 2006.
It's been a minute.
yeah,
I-
18 years.
I had a lot of hair, actually.
Are you
in
suggesting
sixth
it's
grade.
conservation commission that cleaned you up?
That's a factor.
Just checking.
A factor, not a primary factor. Genetics may have something to do with it.
Oh, six, huh?
Mike,
Yes,
I-
Hannah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but did you specifically make a motion for 64 Fox Run to be continued on June 26th?
We
I
didn't
think we did.
we did not specify the date.
Okay,
Ah,
Do we
okay,
need
so
to-
we should,
We need to revisit that.
yeah.
okay, we'll do that right now, get that corrected. Thank you for catching that, Hannah. I didn't
I'd like
realize.
to amend the motion that we made about continuing lot 64 Fox Run to the evening of June 26th.
At 7 PM,
Right, Hannah?
Yes.
at 7 PM,
Ariana,
okay,
I'll
thank
move
you.
that.
I second that.
For the record, just say who seconded it, because I'm not sure if the recording
James.
secretary could hear.
James,
Okay, thank you, James. I'll do a roll call vote again. Ariane,
Aye.
Noel,
Aye.
James,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Don,
I,
Neil,
aye.
Mike O'Hare, online ayes, unanimous vote to continue that to the 26th. Thank you. All right, Hannah, we don't, oh, I'll wait for Hannah.
That is the only thing. Sorry,
Thank
go
you,
ahead.
Matt.
Neil.
I think I'm
Okay,
staying.
Thank you. Oh, you're
I think
staying,
I'm
okay.
staying, Mike.
That's great. I always have
Oh, I
company.
gotta go.
Get out of here. Okay, so Hannah, any word from Lou?
No, and I
I don't see him zooming in. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think, okay. All right, so
Yeah,
we'll
so
continue.
do you want me to read the email that he gave to me now? I'm stuck in this. I don't know.
We can jump to the Blackstone and North if you want.
Oh, okay, go
That's
ahead.
gonna be an
Let's
easy one.
just do
Okay,
that,
so.
Mike. Let's just move on, Mike.
Okay, moving along. So the continued hearing for notice of intent for Blackstone and North Streets, 12 3-unit townhouse buildings with stormwater management system. John Mushian, the applicant, Ryan Racine, Goddard Consulting is the applicant's rep. We last heard that they were still reviewing things with the planning board. We were asked to review both the order of conditions online, which Concom members still need to do some looking at that when we can get back access to the portal. That's one of those pieces of information we don't have access to, most of us now. And also to review the conservation restriction draft that was provided by the applicant's representative to see how we felt about that and to see how compatible it is with other versions in town. Is this Ryan?
Yes, this is.
Okay, Ryan, so go ahead and give us an update if you were where you are with the planning board and other parts of the project.
Yeah, sure thing. So for the record, Ryan Rosine with Goddard Consulting. Yeah, so for the planning board, I believe, to my knowledge, they voted to approve the project. They made their decision. From what I understand, the Gerier and Hellman, the project engineer just needs to have the site plan updated or tweaked to match the decision language from the planning board and the signatures from the planning board on it. And so I don't have that for you tonight. The engineer is actually on vacation, so they're planning on having it to me next week. So I'll be providing that to you guys so that you guys have the same plan set as planning board approved it. So I'm not expecting, to close this tonight or anything like that. We'll have to push it off in a meeting so you guys can have the correct plan. And then the other thing is, yes, I sent you guys a copy before the previous meeting, a copy of the draft conservation restriction for the site. If you guys have any questions on that, we can discuss that tonight.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I will certainly open that up to if any Concom members have had a chance to look at the conservation restriction. If not, I had talked to Hannah about this. This is similar to what we were talking about with the 217 Hartford Ave, wanting to be consistent with other conservation restrictions in town and in language and the terms of and so forth to see if we are compatible. I would suggest if the Conservation Commission members, since we continue this to the 26th anyway, for the plans to be matching up and so forth, plans of record, that maybe if a commission member wants to volunteer to do some comparisons, side-by-side comparisons. I know Hannah or Kyla, our intern, can help do that too. But if they're looking for a little extra homework, so to speak, to do a little comparisons to other conservation restrictions, which I think we could have dug up by Hannah and provided to members, just to see how there another set of eyes on it to compare that. And also a reminder that the order of conditions does need to be reviewed by as many members as can access it once the portal is back up and you're able to get into it. So if any Concom members have questions about the conservation restriction that you were able to see, or would like to volunteer to do a comparison review to a couple other ones in town, if that opportunity can happen between now and next meeting, I'd be happy to hear somebody speak up. The silence is deafening. Okay. So Ryan, I think you're off the hook as far as any questions about the conservation restriction. You heard what I said as far as we're trying to make sure it's compatible and we want to make sure it's reviewed. I think that should we have any questions between now and the 26th, we certainly reach out to you and get some clarification, maybe, so we have that. And if it's something simple and easy provided, maybe there'll be no questions about either that or any issues about the order of conditions, and we'll be closing that hearing then on the 26th potentially and issuing the order of conditions.
Yeah, and just one thing just for you guys to consider, and this may not be, it's whatever, but so this conservation restriction, I know you guys were talking about the previous projects. This conservation restriction is specifically for Division of Fish and Wildlife Natural Heritage. That's the reason why we have the CMP, we have to do the CR. That one, and other ones in town are probably similar to this one. I'm sure there's other ones that are, rare species related. So this conservation restriction may be slightly different than perhaps the previous projects. That's, more mitigation and doesn't have any rare species in. So just keep that in mind when you're reviewing this and looking back at other CRs, just as a note.
That's a helpful note. Thank you. I'll also see first if the commission members have any comments. Then I'll make sure I know I see a large group of people, well, relatively speaking, for the meetings we have in the audience. I want to make sure if there are any abutters there that have any issues or questions, we'll ask you. We'll open that up to you in a moment. Does anybody on the commission have any questions, points, issues for Ryan, or general comments? Okay. Hearing none, seeing none. I'll open this up to anybody in the audience. If there's any abutters that would like to identify themselves and ask questions, invite you to come up to the table. And anybody have any questions or issues? No? Not seeing any? Okay, just want to make sure everybody have the opportunity that might be there for this. Okay. So hearing none, seeing none, I'll accept a motion to continue this notice of intent hearing to the evening of June 26th at 7 p.m. Is this one of the ones you had identified, Hannah, as potentially being on the agenda, or are those other two different ones?
Oh, wait, what, are you asking what's on the 26th?
You said there were two other things already on the agenda earlier in the meeting. I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
one of them is Zero Maple, and then the other would be Fox Run Road.
Okay, all right, good. So we have room on the agenda certainly for this. This should be pretty straightforward. I'll accept a motion from someone.
I'll move James.
Thank you, James. Second.
Second, Neil.
Thank you, Neil. Okay, roll call vote. Mike O'Hare online, aye. James.
Aye.
Don.
Aye.
Ariane.
Aye.
Noel.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Neil.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous vote. Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Ryan.
Good night.
Good evening. All right, to fill a few more minutes to give Lou Petrosi a chance to get online if he's able to. Is Paul in the room? Paul McManus? He's representing for tonight for I don't see anybody else online other than myself. Is there anybody else online, Hannah?
No.
Okay,
But
so
do you-
Paul's not in the room, so nobody can represent for that project yet. We'll fill the time with other business and try to move through those items.
Okay.
340 Lake Street, the Snat Estates. There was a site walk done, I believe, on the 8th. How did that go? Does somebody want to talk about it? That walked it? Any Concom members want to give their observations, what they saw, what happened?
Yeah,
Go for it, Neil.
so we went and had a look. Basically walked the silt fence, the LOW. Everything looked pretty good. I think in general, we could probably stand to maybe just have a look at the siltation control.
especially around, what was that, where the wetland,
The culvert crossing.
yeah, the culvert crossing, just to make sure that that's beefed up. It looked like it was a little ratty in a couple of places there. But generally, it was, everything seemed to be in order. The only issue we had, and I did review the before the portal shut down, the order conditions about no work being done outside of the limit of work. And there were at least 3 trees taken from outside the limit of work.
Right,
So that was,
clear violation there.
that was, I think, the meat of the walk, when you,
Agreed, and I believe when we were, prior to the walk, there were 2 items that we wanted to verify. One was making sure that the order was recorded in the registry of deeds, which it was indeed. And then the other thing was the SWIP and the EPA, the NIPD's ENOI, which was also, that was sent to me, that is finalized, it's in compliance, it's actually on the CDX, the EPA CDX website, so that's all in order as well. So those are 2 items that we wanted to make sure we're taking
Rob?
care of.
Rob,
Yep,
could you do me a favor for the public that may be listening in as the abutter, just to take those 2 acronyms that you just referred to, the SWEP and others, and just say what they stand for and what they mean?
sure.
Poison them.
Sure, so the
All right.
SWIP,
sounds fine.
the SWIP, the Stormwater Pollution
prevention.
Prevention Plan. That's right, there's 3 Ps. Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, which is a document required as part of the EPA's National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System.
Nice.
Yeah. NIPD's program. Since the project is over 1 acre of disturbance, the developer is required to submit that paperwork and get that permit through the EPA, which the developer who's here in the audience has done. So he's in compliance, and I believe it was the engineer that prepared it, and it was very well organized. Which I can actually provide that to the commission as well. I don't think Anna received it, but so yeah, that's where that stands.
Okay, thank you. Commission members have some other questions or points about this project, and if not, then I'd ask the applicants, not, Tim Jones is in the audience there, if he'd like to make any comments regarding the what happened with the site and the going over the limit of work area that was approved. But first, give the commission members, if you have any other questions or
Steve.
observations.
Mike, I do. So
Go ahead, Steve.
what is next? So he's breached the limit by a few trees. Was there a conversation with the developer? Has the problem stopped?
Good questions. Is the butter there in the meeting tonight? Oh, there he is.
It was a
Sorry.
one-time event.
Yeah,
It was an event, it's not an ongoing issue. It was a one-shot deal.
so the tree clearing's finished, so no more tree clearing.
Yeah, but there'll be other work.
But
Correct.
that's not what we looked at.
So we have a violation that occurred. It's done as far as not, as people are just mentioning, continuing to be an issue like erosion per se, but impacts were made to an abutter's property that shouldn't have been, and we can't go replant those 3 trees. Well, we could potentially ask to have 3 trees replanted, but certainly can't put the trees back. I don't know if the abutter whose property was impacted has thought of any particular remediation that they would like to recommend. We don't really have jurisdiction to, I think, require particular remedies be done per se. It's more of an agreement usually between the property owners. If possible, we try to let them resolve it. You come on up to the front. Come on up to the table, please. I can't hear you if you spoke back there anyway. And if Tim Jones wants an opportunity to come up and speak it, feel free to do so, Tim. It's your call on that. But go ahead. Identify yourself for the record, please.
The trees that have been removed, the trees that are gone. There's a question about the viability of the trees that are along the line of clearing on that bank, is my question. All I wanted was an arborist to look at it. I had my own arborist come and look at it, and I believe as we discussed, at the last meeting, that is, within the conservation's purview. I had an arborist come out and tell me like these trees are vulnerable, like they're basically posing a hazard. to my
So these
property.
trees, just to be clear, first of all, just identify yourself for the record, please, because
I'm Dan Kelly. I own 340 Lake Street.
thank you. So Dan, those trees that you had the arborist look at, those were at the top of the crest in those pictures that you were showing us?
Yes, sir.
And those were on your property?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We don't know. I mean, there's some confusion about the
Well,
property line
that's
as well. but
one of the
that's
questions I was gonna ask was the property ever staked out along that road by either the applicant, by by Tim, by you, or your company?
I'm awaiting my own survey.
Okay, but
The applicant, my neighbor, Mike Burr, had the property staked out. But there's a confusion there where there's bean poles every 15 feet, and you get to that tree line, and then there's nothing until halfway up the bank.
okay, so the property isn't staked completely along that property line and probably should be, but if that is staked out and it is clear that it is within the property line of the, I'm sorry, your property there, then my question would be, do you have a specific plan from the arborist to stabilize the remaining trees on your property, which were perhaps only done up to the work limit or not? That's
Kind of a
part.
gray area, whereas he cut through the roots, like he graded through the roots, so I don't know what his liability is. as
Well,
far-
if that's where the property line needs to be determined, if he's working within his scope of approved property line and limit of work, then I think that's a cost to the, or an impact that would be, not to say permitted, we don't want to advocate for trees to be damaged outside of the area that's actually being worked on
Yeah,
because
these trees are in the buffer zone, sir. So
Right.
they are significant value, I believe it's the.
Right, I'm not saying they're not
Regulation
severe
state.
value, I'm just saying I'm not sure what we can do about that mitigation if he's within, if it turns out that those tree roots are cut and it's well within your property line, and that area is also an area violation, then remediation should be done, some sort of stabilization or a wall put up with soil, if that's what's recommended, something to stabilize the situation, not make it worse. You don't walk away leaving property damaged by impacts like that, if they can be mitigated or prevented. And I think
And
that
I actually don't blame Mr. Jones. I don't know how we arrived at this point where the road was jammed in along the property line. I suspect that it was to get around that isolated wetland on the other side of my house. So I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of a lot of questions here. And, I have the permit here in front of me. It says under findings, there's a section where it says denied. It says denied buffer zone impact, shortest distance between limited project disturbance and the wetland resource area specified. It says denied. So I don't know if it's a formatting issue. I don't read these permits, but I have a lot of questions. It's just, kind of unfortunate. Ken seems like a nice guy, but, it says right in the regulations, like it's, right in the order of conditions, it says, the order does not grant any property rights or any exclusive privileges. It does not authorize any injury to private property or invasion of private rights. Right there.
Right. Okay, Tim, what is your stand on this, and what is your position as far as with the property owner and so forth? What are you guys willing to do to work with the abutter there?
My engineer had staked out the erosion control line, which is definitely on my property by probably 3 feet. That's the erosion control line, not the property line. So everything we cut on the inside of that erosion control is on my property. We cut 2 trees at the beginning on the other side of the erosion control, still on my property, but me and Mr. Kelly had a discussion early on about, the 2 trees, they were dead, they were going over the top of his house. And we had a discussion about taking those down. They were exactly right directly over the erosion control line. And we worked with Mr. Kelly and his wife and his daughter to take those down, to make sure they, they left the house that day, because we didn't want to take the trees down, because they were literally, leaning on their house. It was probably my mistake to take them down. I was trying to be a good neighbor, help them out. They were, like I said, I believe they're still on my property. But they are inches over the erosion control.
Okay, Dan, I thought I saw 3 trees in the picture that was provided, 3 side by side. Was the third tree?
He's gonna get to the third tree's a separate sort of issue, Mike.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So
Continue.
the third tree that came down was, a mistake of, the tree clearer, the tree went the wrong way. Hit one of the trees in Dan's, yard, broke it off. We immediately went in without machinery. We cleaned it up, we cut it up by hand, we cleaned it up. We took the majority of the piece with the excavator that sat on my road, take it out, and we cleaned it all up. That was my mistake, that was the tree clearer's mistake. The tree, when he cut it, went the wrong way. One out of many, many. So that clearly was our mistake. Wasn't done intentionally. And that was the third tree.
Okay. Commission members input?
Well, I guess my question on the 2 trees, Tim, on the front is,
Yes.
were those trees outside the limit of work? I know I'm not gonna speak to the property line. You think they're on your property, you're not sure. So granted, that's a gray area, but was the erosion control placed at the limit of work?
Yes,
And were the trees outside the limit of work?
yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So,
Like I said, probably shouldn't have done it, but we, early on, trying to be a good neighbor, was trying to help them out, just bought a house. They were pretty much dead, the trees. The tops they weren't flowering.
60 footers maybe? 50
I
footers?
don't think that big. I don't know.
Wide open, probably about 50 feet, the pine had to be 80.
But they were leaning, and we had discussed it.
Yeah.
All right.
And maybe I shouldn't have done it. My fault on that, but just trying to help them out and,
Okay.
want to get off on the right foot. That's all I was trying to do.
I mean, I don't want to be getting into the position of trying to mediate a dispute between 2 property owners if we don't have jurisdiction, but the one gray area that I think might remain is at the top of the crest in the pictures that we were shown, the area that seemed to have a lot of stakes and then no stakes, as Dan, you pointed out. If there's a question about both the limit of work line, which is the most important to us, but not to exclude the property line, they may be overlapping at that spot on the top of the hill. But if that's where the damage to Dan Kelly's trees are that are clearly on his property that were caused by the road cut being put in inadvertently, not looking to damage trees. If that area could be identified for the limit of work clearly for everybody's purposes, and if it is determined that right where the roots are all exposed is right where the limit of work is, Dan, I will ask you if you and and Tim can come to some sort of perhaps agreement between each other and let us step out of it, where you would maybe have a low retaining wall of some sort of rocks or something, and then dirt put behind it to stabilize, if that would then potentially save those trees on his property, which were affected by the road cut going in so close to even if it was within the limit of work. If it was outside the limit of work, then that's, again, another area that was transgressed because it wasn't marked or whatever. If it was, I'm not saying it was, then that's a
Isn't there a
whole
wall
different
proposed in
issue.
that area anyway?
There is a wall proposed.
There you go.
I'll say a hand, go ahead, whoever that is, hand,
Isn't it in the buffer zone
But
probably in the buffer zone.
area that you're talking about, the slope?
it's inside the erosion control. That's that was our limit of work.
I'm talking about the part that Mike mentioned about putting a wall.
That's the area we are talking
Yeah, I
about.
got a
That's
wall.
already-
Very huge.
It's already disturbed as part of the plan.
Yeah, that's part of
There's a
the,
wall going
plan.
there.
So it's
That
not
was
the
part
buffer
of the
zone.
approved plans, was to have the wall there.
Okay.
Because they had.
Maybe not specifically to deal with the roots that were cut and the trees that were potentially being exposed to damage down the road or dying off because the roots are exposed. But so if a wall is going to go in there and dirt's going to go in on top of that, and that would address that issue potentially to both the property owner, Dan, as well as being something that's being done anyway, is that clearly that area and that's going to be done? Or is it like, we're not sure of that still and that should be resolved?
No, that's gonna be done.
Okay, so Dan, you're hearing this. Do you want to talk to your arborist and see if that would potentially?
In the name of fairness, I don't know if we should have an independent arborist to come out and evaluate and maybe give us a possible solution.
So your
Well,
arborist,
that's-
an independent arborist?
No, someone that obviously is biased, I'm paying him, I'm his customer, so I don't know how that works, I like to be fair, and given that. In this instance, the tree warden was the applicant for the permit, we can't use him, that's kind of,
Yep.
Whereas, here we are, we're having problems with trees, the tree warden was the applicant, I mean, there are regulations, that govern conflict of interest, and it's just, I think that makes me a reasonable person here tonight, that I have tree damage on my property, so. I just, I'm kind of in the situation where I'd like to have Deb come and look at it, just that if they say everything's above board, everything's fine here, I'll happily, you'll never see me again. But I'm concerned.
I'm sorry, you said you'd like to have who come, Dan? I couldn't hear
Yeah,
that.
I'd like to have-
DEP.
Oh, DP. I'm not sure if they would come out. I'm not sure what they would see as a reason to be called out. They might, I don't know that.
Would be to, hire an engineering consultant. Because, I mean, I'm an environmental consultant and I can't speak for everyone, but we do maintain independence.
Yeah.
Paying someone
Yeah,
to use their expertise.
I mean, like I've talked to the arborist about it, like the cost to replace is astronomical, like, and it's just he's a businessman, like I'm not trying, and said to Neil, like I'm not looking to crucify him, we're just looking for a resolution.
You could even
This thing's pretty
pay for
intrusive.
someone to like review what he's proposing and just say like,
I mean,
that
yeah,
looks
you know,
good.
I'm out here minding my business, like this construction happened next to me, like I'm kind of like an innocent bystander, like an unwilling participant, if you will. So, I know there is some language in his full permit that if his construction requires an expert to come out, then he's supposedly gonna foot the bill. I don't know, I'd have to find it directly. That might be in the actual subdivision plan.
Not really.
So we don't have a copy of the order of conditions at hand to see if that is a condition in there.
No, unfortunately, I don't think from our permit point of view, we're
I mean, it's.
working on those other trees, outside the limit of work, notwithstanding. There didn't seem to be much from our point of view, from our permit point of view, to work with.
I would respectfully disagree because the sun sets on the backside of that earth. If those trees are compromised, that would affect the crown cover of the wetland next to my house. Like, that's why I think this is a conservation issue. Like, if the liability of those trees is, if they're gonna die, I mean, he said a couple of them probably gonna fall over, but they're gonna fall over in the direction of his road. So,
If it's in a buffer zone, how's it not apply to us?
The act itself
They
covers alteration of a resource area. So.
if these are unintended consequences, they're not like, I mean,
Right, we can only actually issue determinations based off the jurisdiction that the state gives us and how our bylaws written.
common sense would say you can't excavate that, close that deep next to a 100-foot pine or 90-foot pine, like, I mean, it probably should have been evaluated during the permitting process. But whereas the applicant was a tree warden, see where I'm going?
Yeah, well, that's something that's maybe a legal issue as far as conflict of interest, but not something we can regulate on, I think, Dan, unfortunately.
I know, you had previously said that you didn't have control over it, and I kind of disagree because I believe you guys get training on this, like, I believe you're obligated to recognize potential conflict of interest, and now here we are, like, I don't want to be here on a Wednesday night, I got a baby at home. It's just really disheartening to me.
If I may speak,
Go ahead, Tim.
he's gonna have the lot line staked. When he stakes the lot line all the way up to the corner, it's gonna tell us whose trees are what. And I believe they're still on my property, So if he stakes the lot line, we'll be able to see.
You also need the limit of work stake, Tim, as well.
It
because
already
as you-
is, the limit of work is staked with this, that's the erosion control. It's
Right,
already
but
staked.
It's not properly done, it's supposed to
at
be.
the top of the hill from the picture, if I could speak, at the top of the hill from the pictures I remember seeing, it didn't look like there was much in the way of consistent stakage. Again, it was a long shot away picture, but the members that walked that site, if the
Well,
crown of the hill
this-
was staked
this-
out
this-
properly with the limit of work, then we don't need to go over that. Was it staked?
There's the wattles run all the way along.
Okay.
And there are survey stakes.
There are some stakes, it's difficult to tell with some of them what they're
There's
actually
a benchmark pine,
staking.
there's a benchmark nail up on a pine back there too, like that's easy, the back line's easy to find, it's this side boundary, but.
Right, so if it's outside the limit of work
Yeah,
and it
so
was
it-
impacted,
it's all-
and they're
it's
gonna be
all
putting up a wall and putting in fill, that
Yeah,
may
we
do the
couldn't tell with
trick
the
and
stake.
so help
They
stabilize
had
those trees, but
letters on it, we don't know. what
who
it
gets
is.
an arborist in, I think, is not our call, and who pays for the arborist and so forth. That's not something we would, I think, get involved in, because that's,
No, I agree.
So who's gonna have, who's having, are you having the lot line put in?
I mean, I got no choice, like, that's where I'm at.
Well, that's, I respectfully suggest we kind of wait till that's done, and then to Mr. Jones's point, we know where the line
Whether
is.
property or not, it's still within conservation's purview because of, you know, the importance of trees on the wetlands, so it's like. I mean,
Well,
like-
we don't know, Dan, while I understand what you're saying, that tree cover around wetlands is important. We don't know that taking those trees out, what the negative impact would be long-term. That's conjecture and not something that we would, as part of the original permitting process, when we approved that area to be cleared so close to the property line, that was reviewed, and I don't think it's ever been a case where, unless it's really obvious, you're clear cutting right next to a swamp or something, that kind of impact would be part of the consideration. So if a tree came down that shouldn't, will it impact the wetlands negatively? I'm not saying it won't, but that we don't know that scientifically, factually, so not that we can say there's something we can do about that. Plus, which, the bottom line is, what do you expect or hope to see have happen here? We can't plant 90-foot trees back in.
Maybe you want the
I don't know
road,
if it's
what do you want, the
too
road
late
moved?
for
I
the-
mean, I don't understand.
New trees planted.
Trees, more road, less road, How do we-
Right, like,
no, how do
I
we?
mean, like, you know, people saying like you should be litigating this, like, I mean, unfortunately, it's like, the conservation commission would be on the list if I did, to like create a hazard in my yard, I don't think you understand, like, I have children playing and then my wife goes up there, like. I mean, by the conservation, the wetlands regulations like this never should have been approved, common sense should prevail at some point where you don't excavate directly on a property line with such a steep slope and dense vegetation on it. Like, no one considered the impact on the abutting property, which happens to be in the buffer zone. That's my concern. But if there's no resolution to be had here between, you know, the Conservation Commission and Mr. Jones, then I think I know what I need to do.
Can I just say one thing? It sounds like one of our major questions is that he's questioning where our jurisdiction is. And we have one opinion, but we can't 100% say what it is. But I could talk to the DEP circuit rider to get clarity on that and bring it back to us, just to really confirm that before any more steps from anybody happens, maybe?
And I think, Dan, that would address potentially your request to have the DEP get involved. Maybe they wouldn't go out on site, maybe they look at your pictures and get the information
If
from
they
Hannah.
take them
and-
home and say everything's kosher, then there's nothing to talk about, right? Like you know, if you said you're an environmental consultant, if you go out there and look at, you're a qualified person, you say this is perfectly normal, like these trees are fine, like, I would accept that answer. I don't know enough about this stuff to make a determination and provide a resolution. I don't think Tim's an environmental guy, from what I know. Like, if someone comes out there and, you know, I think it should be depth, or it should be, I mean.
And if we ask somebody to come out, Dan, just so you know, it would be the town tree warden. We wouldn't hire an outside arborist to do that.
Again, you see.
And I know what you're saying about conflict of
So,
interest. which-
and just in quick reference, I did speak with the State Ethics Commission. I didn't formally file a complaint, but they did explain to me, and I kind of detailed the circumstances surrounding this. They did say that those responsibilities of the tree warden should have been assigned to somebody else. That's how the law reads. It's called, self-dealing, and it's all there in black and white. It's like,
Mm,
you can't make decisions on your own plan. I don't know if there's language in in the order of conditions from depth, but it's definitely in the definitive subdivision plan. So, I mean, there's a required site meeting, like literally, there's a required site meeting. by the
which I
time-
believe did happen. Tim, did a site meeting happen as part of the process?
He doesn't know it. I don't even know, I don't think it's.
At the beginning,
Yeah,
with Hannah,
with site meeting, yes, with the.
yes, me and
conservation.
Hannah walked that property, yes.
Okay, prior to the start of the construction.
Reconstruction meeting.
Yeah,
Yes,
so there was a
For
meeting.
the
there.
order.
With the tree warden and DPW.
We-
Again,
We wouldn't necessarily have had the tree warden and DPW come out for a site walk necessarily. They might have. Were they, Rob, do you know if they were participants on it?
Yeah, may I interject, Mr. Chair, for
Sure.
1 second, just regarding the tree warden situation, because I know I was involved on the planning board side of this, not in my official position now, but as the associate member when this was going in. So regarding the tree warden and this discussion about the tree warden making decisions on applications, the tree warden, in my time on the planning board, I have never seen the tree warden get involved on any type of planning board application. I don't know if that has happened on the conservation side. I can't speak to that. But that didn't happen on the planning board side as far as the tree warden being involved. If there would need to be some type of situation where the tree warden had to be involved, then I agree it would make sense that it would have to go to a third party.
But the tree warden, in my understanding, only looks at public trees. right?
Correct, and the situation here, just to add on to this. So the trees in question that Mr. Kelly's talking about, it looks like those are within the 100-foot buffer. The question about the tree falling on another tree and now compromising other trees, in my opinion, this is a civil matter, especially including this property line discussion. In my opinion, as I stated previously, that really the only thing the commission can act on is these trees cut down outside of the erosion control line. That is what should be discussed, in my opinion.
Correct. I think so,
You know,
too.
these other items, these are civil matters. If there's a need for a property line to be delineated, then that's a civil matter, I don't think it's a conservation commission matter.
I concur.
I agree. I don't even know how we got here. I was talking about tree protection. There was no tree protection. That is conservation. There's no tree protection implemented along the property. So I don't know if it's too late for that. That's the only resolution I can possibly see, but.
Well, the tree protection is staying within the limit of disturbance,
Really,
correct? So,
doesn't make much sense. What's the purpose of the tree protection?
Well, you can't protect the trees
That's
everywhere.
like an
Dan. It's-
invisible
it's-
line. It doesn't, you know what I mean? It has no bearing. The property line doesn't have any bearing on whether, you know, an adjacent tree is going to be affected. I don't understand that. So it's within the line clearing?
what are you referring to for tree
I
protection?
mean, there was a job right up the street, right around the corner. I don't know if it was Franklin. They had the metal stakes like nailed to the trees, the bottom of the trees. Supposedly it prevents damage, snapping, etc. So I don't know if that's an option.
Well, those are probably for new trees being planted. I
No,
would
they're
assume.
old trees.
No existing trees, they'll put barriers around to keep the bark from being damaged if the machine backs into a tree.
Like snow fences.
Yes, basically. yeah.
Okay, gotcha. But once again, it is a limit of disturbance situation. Stay out of this area, which is what the erosion control line is in this case.
Can I ask for clarification? Part of what Mr. Kelly is arguing is that the approved limit of disturbance was within the root structure of trees on the other side of disturbance,
Thank you.
correct?
That's what I'm trying to say about those trees up on the.
So we're trying to forecast a possible scenario. And as I'm sitting here learning about the Conservation Commission, if we can't protect items on the conservation and their extended reach, it sounds like that limit of work was put possibly in the wrong place.
Okay.
Well, the limit of work line is very, very tight to where the proposed road is.
So which one prevails?
Well, the,
Conservation of the.
no,
of the
we
project.
set a line based on the criteria we have in the plan to set a line. Based on,
I
based
realize that.
on the Wetland Protection Act, the town bylaw, we set a line.
But
And
the
the line
evidence
is,
is
the
coming.
line is the line. There's
I
no
understand that.
buffer
But the line,
outside the line. This is an unfortunate, but the line has to be created somewhere. And if a tree is potentially damaged down the road because of the roots being cut on the outside of that line, it's unfortunate.
cost of business,
It's at some level, yeah. Because the line has to be drawn some. And then so, well, okay, well,
So
there are
at the end of
trees
the
here,
day, we
there are
really
trees here,
can't
so we move
protect
the
the
line
public.
in. Well, now there are more trees in there, so we move the line back. Now there's more trees there.
well, but eventually you're outside the buffer.
Eventually, you're outside the 100 foot.
So
Well, then we
then
should
the
just-
issue stops.
Well, then we set the line at 100 foot. And then, well, trees potentially 10 feet inside the 100 foot are damaged. So do we pull the line back out to 110? Beyond our jurisdictional,
That's the
Authority?
question.
I mean, I think this is unreasonably close to the roof truck. It's right on top of them, and again, to circle back.
because there's
At
trees.
this point in
No,
time,
but-
since the permit
I'm
was
just gonna,
issued.
if I
and
could
the
just circle
plan-
back to one more point about the.
Go ahead.
the,
Speak up a little louder if
the-
you can, I can't hear
If I could
you.
just circle back to the zoning bylaw I pointed out last week about vegetation, let's see, we're having grade change more than 1 foot. Like, it's literally in the zoning bylaw of the town, and, you know, these trees happen to be in the buffer zone, so my point was, aren't the regulations stricter in the buffer zone than the general bylaw? It's just very confusing to me, how we arrived here, to be honest.
Well, you're mentioning zoning and you're mentioning bylaws, and I'm not sure.
But it's related to the trees in your within your purview, the vegetation.
But what is the 1 foot thing about the zoning that you're referring to? You weren't.
We're talking about the root structures of the trees on the property line. There's about I mean, he's cut a grade about 8 foot deep on that block. I think the finished grade of the road comes up higher. So now with this grade change around the root structure of the trees, I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, I think I know what I have to do at this point, so.
Well, I think Hannah's suggestion of reaching out to the DP circuit rider to see if we're doing everything we can within our purview without overstepping our bounds legally and
I'm
or.
not even trying to stop them. Like, I just want my property protected. Like, we're
All right.
happy about it. We want
Let
them
me,
to build-
Dan, let me ask you one question. The 3 trees that were cut over the property line outside the limit of work that Tim mentioned and agreed were done outside. Are you looking for any particular remediation from them, like planting 3 trees somewhere else in your yard that
I
they
don't
might be
think
willing to
I
do?
don't
Would that
think
be
he's gonna
something
do
you're looking
anything
for?
willingly at this point, so.
Beg your pardon?
I don't believe he's gonna do anything willingly at this point.
Well, I'm asking you if that is something you are looking for remediation, since that was a clear violation, and we can, within our purview, I believe, see if there is something we can do. We can't make those trees go back to what they were, but is something
I
like,
think there is some language in the wetland regulation regarding tree replacement. I could probably pull that up, and if you know your own
Usually it's-
regulations, I'm sure you could find it.
when an applicant takes down trees in an area that is under our regulations, we usually require 1-to-1 replacement, not same size, but up to a certain
Yeah.
diameter tree.
Yeah,
And usually applicants know this because they're requesting permission to cut these trees, and we are giving them permission if they replicate, and that might be what you're about to look up.
yeah.
But my question is that something that's desirable from you? Because there's no sense in pursuing it if you don't really want 3 more trees planted somewhere. I think that the applicant's representative would be willing, or not the applicant's, but Tim's the property owner and so forth, would be willing to do something along those lines, since that was a clear violation, and they should be willing to do something, I think. But beyond that immediate potential measure, is that desirable?
I think
at
it
all?
would be a show of good faith if he did, for sure.
Tim, what do you think?
I'm sorry?
Tim, the three trees you cut over the line, are you willing to replace some smaller, like 6-inch diameter trees somewhere else in his property if that's?
I'm willing to replace them with the, like subdivision trees that I'd be putting in anyway.
Could you be specific what you mean by that?
Yeah, 2.5-inch caliper.
What kind?
Usually shade trees, maples usually. They're
Given
road
that it's
trees.
given that it's a violation, I think that maybe something larger would be appropriate, but I'm not going to specify anything because I'm not qualified to do that. But again, back to you, Dan, is something like 3 shade trees put somewhere else in your yard at your discretion,
Yeah,
something that's desirable as a good faith measure?
If I could have the opportunity to speak with, my arborist,
You've got as much opportunity as you want to. That's fine with us. I'm just looking to see if that's a direction you'd like to pursue while I ask Hannah to speak to the DEP circuit rider. And we'll get back to you with whatever information we find about that.
It's a start for sure.
Okay. Tim, you have anything else?
Nope.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, can I have a closing
Steve,
comment?
go ahead.
Dan, I think one of the things you stumbled on and prompted some of the debate here, even between the commission members, if you were to separate the error removals.
Yeah.
From the collateral damage.
Yeah.
To Neil's point, that sooner or later, you get to the end of the limits of your line, your 100-foot buffer, and
Yeah.
roots continue and work can be done.
The physical trees are all within the 100-foot buffer, like my whole problem.
No, these are the root structure I was talking about. Let's separate that issue.
Yeah.
I think in that aspect, you've stumbled on a little bit of a gray area here. At some point, you get to the end of the road, or the end of the line, if you will. Obviously, to Neil's point, where do you stop? To my point is, well, we can't protect the trees that are on our property and their extended roots. Where's the limit of our authority? And there's clearly, I think, the fact that we've been debating this or discussing it for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
We don't have a black and white answer for you. Does that seem fair, Mike?
Yeah, and I think the DEP circuit rider might help provide some of that clarity that we don't have.
So is the answer Hannah's suggestion with DEP? And it's separating the removed trees, I think Tim's already agreed to help that out, but there's still the root issue,
Right. Get to the root of it, yeah.
the root of the root issue.
That's my.
Which the lot line still has to be staked. You understand that the lot line has to be staked to determine.
Right. And Dan, you're willing to do that. Dan, that's something you're working on getting done for your own protection. Know where your property line is a good sound measure to have for down the road.
Yeah,
Any
yeah, it's
future
your
work.
own property.
I know, I could have it done anyway. So,
Yeah, okay, so when that is done, if you could get back to Hannah and let us know that that's been staked and where it lies and so forth, then we can see if there's anything else that could be done in that area. See where the retaining wall will be compared to that, whether the roots will be covered. See if you want to talk to an arborist about tree planting in your yard and maybe actually ask that arborist if putting dirt back in behind a retaining wall over in this area here would help save those trees at the top that might be a risk. You could maybe combine that with the arborist's other input to you, and maybe we can revisit this when we have that information in hand from both of us and from you. Does that sound good?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. If there's no other questions from the commission, I'd like to move along and thank Dan and Tim both for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Peters River Park game cameras, anything about that? Hannah, you put it on the agenda.
Yeah, do you want to talk? I'm gonna try to put the pictures up.
Yeah, sure. So Mr. Chair, there was a citizen that came in, who actually walks the Peters River Park, which I know is Arcan Park. It's the portion that runs parallel along the south side of Pulaski Boulevard.
Okay,
In that conservation area, there were game cameras that were up, quite a few of them. She has pictures of them. There's quite a bit of trash in there. I haven't walked in there in ages, but that's kind of another issue. But the primary issue was the concerned citizen was a little bit concerned with game cameras being in conservation areas. So most likely being used by hunters, I guess.
Is that a guess, or do we know, how do we know it wasn't just a photography problem?
Yeah, because I had a game camera in my house.
Yeah.
There was a ladder up tied to a tree and actually.
So you gotta get to the camera.
Good photography.
The cameras in the ground. He's the one to do with cameras in the ground and.
Well, regardless of the purpose of the cameras,
They're on conservation.
they're on conservation property and they should be removed.
Correct, so,
No questions asked, they should be gone,
yeah.
period.
Can we get the DEP to go in there and remove that stuff, or do we need to find volunteers like a Boy Scout troop to go in and clean it up?
Wait, where is this first?
Arcan Park.
Can you
South
get like
Bellingham.
So there is a park commission. Do we have anybody?
Oh,
Camera itself,
Commission?
well, we don't know where the camera itself.
Zoom link, because I, if you
Oh.
want, I can pull it up, I just don't have the Zoom
Like
link.
this is all.
Right.
That whole.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I'll pull it up
Specifically what
for
tree
you.
it's on, no.
Just the general area.
Yeah.
Rob or Hannah, do we have a park commissioner that we can just bring this up to and say there's litter and debris on the town park property? Because this may not even be on conservation land per se.
Actually, I believe I do have a contact.
This is the Parks Department, this is mostly a Parks Department issue.
Right, exactly. So I
Yeah, I
don't want to
think
spend a lot of time on it.
That doesn't,
Huh? What?
it doesn't really exist.
Right.
The Bellingham Parks Department? Really?
I know.
I know they've had
We're working on
personnel
bringing them
issues.
back.
We had one,
Yeah, I think, there is
we
one.
had one,
Yeah, we had one.
we had one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not really, we're working on it. Open space is working on it.
Okay, so
Invite.
Oh.
wanting to continue to move things along, do we want to do something about this? Like reach out to DPW / Parks Commission / Dennis Frayne and say, we got an issue on one of the parks. It's not really Concom, but we've had an interested citizen point out debris activities that probably shouldn't be happening. Can you guys act on it? And if they'll act on it, then we can just let it go and follow up maybe with the citizen and let them know we've done that.
Do commissioners have the authority to remove the cameras?
Sure.
And then what do we do with them?
By the
We
dumpster?
can do research. Well,
You could-
No, it's a good question.
if they were,
They probably have SIM cards in them, so you can bring either the police station and they can probably get contacts off the SIM card.
oh, I was thinking of the donation situation.
Well, I'm appreciative of the citizen bringing this to our
For the trash
attention.
barrel.
Or use them?
If
I
it's
think
on,
great.
Yeah,
I don't see why we
no
wouldn't
problem.
ask the Parks Department or whoever it is to see if they're able to clean it up.
Then maybe we can talk to Parks or whoever could be the authority just to put up some no hunting signs in case people don't know that you're not supposed to hunt on conservation land.
but it's not
I think
clear.
I
that's
think the large
conservation.
amounts of trash are more of a problem than the game cameras.
Yeah, that is it's bad in there.
Yeah, the
Those
pallets,
things, yeah,
the fires
yeah,
that are
tires.
on tires, well, the tires have probably been there for,
Still,
yeah.
Basic question, doesn't the golf course, Neil, doesn't the golf course back up to that side of Arcan Park, the actual pond?
No,
I'm
Okay, because I
pulling it
remember
up right
walking
here.
the golf course down at the south end of town and
no, that's Bungay, that's. where they put
Bungay,
the
never mind,
condos.
never mind, okay, Bungay broke, never
That's
mind.
where they
Okay,
put the
there's a
condos.
bar in the bottom.
kind of like behind, I
Okay.
think, Lake Street Auto.
That's further
Yeah,
south.
right, so if, my question is this, if it is not Concom land, then let's get the DPW / Parks Department person, if there is one, involved
It is
and
Concom
not
land.
pursue this anymore
Is it?
because
Yeah, it's conservation land.
it
Yeah, but
is,
it's managed by the town,
right.
for the park in the same way that we own Silver Lake. But we don't maintain the beach but that's our
Yeah,
property.
so the
All right,
DPW Parks Department.
If we don't find any luck with between Hannah and Rob, if we don't find any luck in getting somebody from the DPW / town / Parks Department to act on this, let's bring it up at the next meeting and see if we can't find some other way to address a cleanup removal of that stuff and volunteers or whatever, and then move along with that, but I don't
Well, I
want,
got it, I just can't, the host is saying.
Maybe it can be the town's next Eagle Scout project.
that's good for me, yeah. Anything else on this camera?
And Mike, we have a question from the audience.
Yes, please identify yourself, come up to the
Do we
table.
have individuals in town that owe us community service?
There could be, that could be another option to pursue for volunteer / they have to be up to the project. Obviously, we wouldn't ask somebody that's working off their tax dollars that wasn't physically up to it or something, but
Chain
yeah.
gang,
Well, I was thinking troublemakers that.
well, I don't know about that. Well, I don't want to identify troublemakers.
We canvass the streets and say,
People with ATVs, they can pick up trash.
They can,
Keep them out there.
but that's,
One last ride.
the area in question is right over here where my cursor is in this.
Okay,
The road that comes into Arkham Park off Lake Street, that's here,
To the parking lot.
to the parking lot,
Yeah.
which is right here.
Right.
And
So
then
it's on the other side of them. So they're getting in from,
they're actually coming in, see this little lot right here? I think it's listed as 889.
Yeah.
That is actually, it's across from Sharon Tree Service.
oh, is that the like?
Chain link.
The
Yeah,
chain,
chain
that's
link,
that's
yeah.
owned by some utility, that's owned by
Correct.
some utilities.
So you might actually see that there's a little pull off next to it. I
Yep,
guess
there
that's
is.
where people enter if they,
Well, maybe the DPW could put big rocks across that entrance area.
Maybe if you. keep
Or
it
the
dark.
person that owns that property could be held to account.
during work hours, I can put my desk there
there you go.
and stay
Stop.
out.
Probably gets a little buggy down there.
Yeah.
A little bit of
Okay.
that.
Funny feeling they're not down there during work hours.
No.
Move,
doesn't
moving
look like
right
a workout.
along. Does anybody else have
Sorry,
anything else they want to
sorry.
It's
contribute
bad
to
if
this?
Mike's pushing this.
Yeah,
I just
so
want to make sure we touch on other things. 19 Bellstone Drive. Anna? Can I, okay, could you identify yourselves just for the record? Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Norman Hill. I'm president of Land Planning. I'm a licensed civil engineer, also a licensed land surveyor. I've been in this line of work for almost 50 years. With me tonight is Steve Hamilton. He and his wife have lived at 19 Bellstone for 7 years. It's a situation here going on here that I haven't seen in my 50 years of experience. If you could each take one of these and pass that around. That's a map that shows you, it's right off the computer. It shows you the topography of the area. It shows you where Bellstone Drive is. It shows you where Mr. Hamilton lives at number 19, and it shows you where his neighbor, the Caddens, live at number 17. So this project was built 1998. And the person that made the mistake here was the developer. The developer tried to trick Mother Nature. The developer decided to put in a subdrain. So if you notice behind these houses, there's a large hill. There's almost 50 acres of land washing down towards Bellstone. That hill is 70 feet tall. About a one-on-one slope. A lot of water coming off that hill in the spring when the snow melts. So what the developer did, he decided to install a subdrain about 100 feet up this hill above these lots to intercept most of the water coming off the hill. And that subdrain goes up behind their lots, and then it comes down where the developer had a drop inlet installed down near Bellstone Drive. So it worked great for the first few years. So the two families that live in these houses really didn't have a lot of water, didn't have a seasonal brook running between their two houses like they do now. They didn't have flooded backyards like they do now. So every year they were there, more and more water came off this hill, which has led to a Hatfields and McCoy situation where these neighbors just hate one another. And I don't even think they even understand what's happened to them. Because this subdrain is totally clogged. We were out there a week and a half ago with DPW and engineering, and they took that drop inlet that I mentioned, that's at the end of this easement, they opened it. And it was a wet time of year, the water was running down between the two houses. There wasn't a drop of water coming from the subdrain, not one drop. That drop inlet was bone dry. So that tells me that that subdrain has failed. It's either filled.
Pardon me, Mr. Hill, that subdrain runs up the easement and then heads to the north behind the properties in the yellow highlighted
Well,
area.
it starts up at the hill and runs across, horizontally across the hill.
Behind that,
It's up 100 feet up the hill.
Okay.
Behind those houses, it runs across the hill, then it comes
so
down.
that's not in the yellow easement area.
It's in that yellow easement.
Well, that's what I was asking.
Yes.
So it runs along here and then
Then
down.
down towards
Okay.
Bellstone, yeah.
Thank you.
This is what I took the pictures of.
Yes.
So the
It's
two
all
neighbors,
covered with leaves.
you can imagine having a dry backyard and all of a sudden you've got all this water coming at you, and they've been blaming each other. So the Haddids put a pool in about 20 years ago, and they raised their backyard. And they put the pool in. And then they've been giving them a hard time. He's been there for 7 years. And they tried so hard, the Hatters have tried so hard to keep the water from coming onto their land, that they've actually built a dam between their backyard and his backyard. They built a dam. Solid concrete wall. So whatever water comes off the hill stays on his land, and none of it supposedly comes onto them, but it's still coming off the hill onto their land too, and they're getting flooded. So what do? It's two families being flooded. One family has put up a dam. The Hatters, in my mind, have changed the flow of water. That flow of water used to go through their backyard. I wasn't here 20 years ago. I can't say I saw it go through their backyard. That water used to go through their backyard.
Where did you get that information from?
From the topography that I discovered. So here's the topography that existed in '87 before the project was built. So the developer installed this subdrain and then built their house where the brook used to be. Their house sits right where the brook used to be. And the pool is another dam. So if this happened last week, I'd be asking you to give them an enforcement order, ask them to tear down the house, rip out the pool, restore the wetlands. But this happened over 20 years ago.
The subdrain, let me interrupt for a second. The subdrain, just for clarification for me, because I'm not looking at what they're looking at the handouts. The subdrain is basically a drainage ditch that was dug across the hill 100 feet up behind these
I
houses.
wish it were, but he filled it with stone.
Okay, so
stone
it's
is
filled with
just-
stone, and
It's
you're saying
maybe-
it was totally, you're saying it's totally clogged. Was that reviewed by the DPW when they were out there last week?
Nobody went up the hill and dug a hole to see where it was clogged or how badly it was clogged.
Ah.
I suspect the whole 300 feet of it is filled with mud.
Probably. Okay, so that's 100 feet up the hill from the backs of these two houses, correct?
Correct.
But you said the slope was 70 feet. The hill is 70 feet high. My math says that it's 30 feet in the air. So I don't know, you meant 70 feet
Well, if
of,
you look, the first handout
elevation?
shows contours every 10 feet going up the hill. There's
Okay.
contour after contour. There's 7 contours going up that hill at 70 feet in elevation.
okay, but you said the detention bay, the drainage ditch that's filled with stones is clogged with mud that was running 300 feet across the backs of those was 100 feet from the houses. That's what I heard repeatedly. Is it 100 feet up the slope
Well,
or
it's
like
100
50
feet up the hill. It's another 50 feet from the house. It's 150 feet roughly from the houses.
He's talking about up. It's 70
I'm-
feet up in the air.
Oh, no. It's probably elevation wise, maybe 20 feet in elevation higher than these backyards.
Okay, but how far from the back of the houses, those two houses, is this drainage ditch slash sub basement, sub catchment? If there's a,
So if you stand in the street,
yeah,
it's about 100 feet to the houses.
yeah,
And then you walk down their backyards, each have about 50, 60 feet of backyard. And
right,
once you get to it comes downhill gradually, so their backyard's almost dead flat. You get to the back of the yard and it drops into a low spot that I would call
Okay.
seasonal brook. But that's maybe 2 feet deep, 8 feet wide. I've got pictures of it.
right,
Then it goes straight uphill, like a one-on-one slope,
right.
hundreds of feet up into the woods.
So hundreds of feet up in the woods, the 70 feet that you referred to, I was thinking that's what you were referring to was that slope. So
No.
100 feet up that slope is about where that drainage
Yes,
ditch was up. Okay, so there's 100 feet of runoff that's not being caught by that.
correct.
That comes down to that low point that you mentioned is like a seasonal brook. It's not
Correct.
that the basin, even if it was working particularly well, wouldn't capture that 100 feet anyway because it's below downhill from it. So you do have other runoff. It's not like the basin, if that was dug out and replaced with new stone or done properly and fed down into that dry basin off to the side of the house, which you saw the earlier and mentioned was bone dry, that would even catch that 100 feet of slope between the drainage under basement, under drainage slope, whatever you call it.
That's
Ditch.
correct.
Do we know in all your research, do we know who holds that drainage easement?
So I researched to see if it was ever deeded to the town of Bellingham, because I like to be able to ask the town to open, but it wasn't. It wasn't deeded to the town of Bellingham.
So it's an easement that no one owns. And no one has the right to an easement.
No one deeded the rights.
That's not really an easement.
So each homeowner would have to reclaim out their own section, which I'm not gonna recommend that be done, because then what you have for seasonal brook at the bottom there's few wetland plants there, they would die. If you go out there now, it's bone dry now. It's
Well,
only-
they may or may not. You have 100 feet of slope that's below that, that's feeding that low spot, that brook too. So while the drainage might improve for some of the runoff, it's still going to have runoff of 100 feet of slope, just to be clear, down into that area, no matter what is done in the top. Is there a property owner that we can reach out to, whether they provide an easement? Who owns that property where that drainage culvert was dug?
There are 4 lots.
Oh, the 4 lots
Haddock's,
extend up that
the
far?
Hamiltons, and then 2 other families.
I wasn't clear that they all extended up that far. Okay.
So,
I don't know. This becomes now pretty naughty as far as who can do what and who's required to do what. I don't know.
so the Haddocks hate the Hamiltons. And they've been fighting them and suing them, and they even built a dam to keep the water from coming off the Hamiltons' lot onto their lot. And now they have the gall to file a complaint with you to say the Hamiltons are flooding their property. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Well, maybe it's because they didn't do this engineering.
I'm sorry?
Maybe it's because they didn't do this engineering work in this investigation.
I don't think they realize what's happened. I don't think they realize the subdrains failed. I don't think they even realize it's up there. They've been fighting this water for 20 years. It's a mess. I don't know what the answer is.
Mr. Chair, may I butt in?
Go ahead, please do.
Sure. So a few weeks ago, myself and a few representatives from the DPW walked the site. We also walked the site with the property owner and Mr. Hillette. That was previous to the site walk that I'm talking about. But walked the site, walked the back area, and that is correct that there is a failed subdrain back there. You can dig up portions of it. It's all crushed. It's not functioning. There are some neighbors who have remediated in ways to get channels to get the water to flow down their rear property lines instead of into their houses. And that's going along the entire side of Bellstone. There's multiple houses affected by this. So the DPW has requested a third-party engineer to look at this to figure out, because there has been different, I don't want to say, there's been remedial action that the DPW has done regarding adding lawn drains and drainage structures along the front of these parcels to try and collect water, because there has been some serious issues with drainage and high groundwater with Bellstone Drive. That was kind of what I was trying to mention at the last meeting. So that's the overarching Bellstone Drive, not just this property, multiple properties. So just want to make that clear. We haven't really had an actual proposal submitted yet. I'm actually talking with the engineering firm tomorrow regarding, because there's actually some other drainage issues, believe it or not, in town. So we're trying to take a holistic.
We might be aware of some of those.
Aware is one way to put it. So anyway, that's the overarching Bellstone Drive issue. I know that based on the conversations at the last meeting, it was really the concern of filling in the resource area behind the parcel that I think we wanted to discuss.
Is it a resource area or is it a drain?
It's a great question. I am not entirely sure because I am not a wetland scientist. I also was not involved with this enforcement order. This was before I started. So I know I kind of learned about this when I walked out on the site and tried to figure out the drainage situation. It's clear that a lot of people have filled in their backyards. I mean, it's obvious when you walk back. Yeah.
Classic texture story.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but there is, clear as day, there is a drainage channel that runs down. It was flowing really well when we were out there. There is water that is running. I did look on streams
From the backyard.
from the rear of the site, correct? Yep. So,
So given the amount of water and the amount of flow and the number of years that water's been flowing there, we probably now have hydrology, we probably now have wetland species, plants. growing in there potentially.
As I said, I'm not a wetland scientist, but it's certainly, it's certainly saturated, and it seems like it is frequently. I did look on stream stats to see if it was mapped, which it was not, but that is about as much as my wetland scientist, expertise goes. So,
Can I add something to,
Sure.
when this was, Haddon came in, she presented two theories, if you remember. One was, Mr. Hamilton's sump pump, and the other was the filling in of the wet area by Mr. Hamilton, was pushing the water onto her property. I met with her and walked it, and I think at the last meeting, I said that even if you eliminated Mr. Hamilton's sump pump, there's still water coming from the back of the property. Obviously, because the original developer went through the whole work of this drain, which I brought in pictures. And where the yellow is, by the way, there's a little bit of a swale where the drain is, and then it rises and then drops again, probably by 2 or 3 feet.
yeah,
You walk out her backyard and it's flat, and then it rises, and just a slight drop, and then if you move the leaf cover, you got the gravel.
yeah, and I think, I don't know if you saw this, Steve, when you walked out there, if you went all the way to the end of the drainage or where the 4-inch perforated pipe is, but a neighbor further down actually did dig out the perforated pipe. I don't think there was a perforated pipe all the way down at this property, but to remediate any drainage coming off that hill, they dug a channel. It hits the 4-inch perforated pipe that's covered and failed. It has nowhere to go. When I was out there, that channel was completely full of water. And where does it go? Downhill to 19 Bellstone. So this is the situation where the
It added to this, as the water comes from the back between the two properties, it flattens out and settles right on Mrs. Haddad's leaching field. And settles into the ground there.
Well, can I just stop for a second? Based on the conversation we're just having, you're not a wetland scientist. Is this area jurisdictional of the Conservation Commission?
That's a great question.
No.
Well,
Check.
I think,
Conservation Commission does do flood control, but,
Plans are protected.
yeah,
But this is,
but I think it's.
but I'm not sure this would qualify as a floodplain. From a jurisdictional point of view, is this a floodplain?
Flood control.
Do we need to have BSC or somebody review this, or
Flooding?
could we have somebody else determine
it?
whether it's
I mean,
wetland?
I just want, I'm not parsing the words here. Do we have jurisdiction over this area? Anybody?
When
Mr.
I
Hill.
first was invited to the site, he asked me, are there wetlands back here? So I walked all the way back this back lawn. I could see the water flow, and I said, yes, it's a seasonal brook. Seasonal brooks are jurisdictional. It's a seasonal brook. But I don't see any wetland plants. I mean, there's no cattails, no skunk cabbage, there's no ferns. I mean, there's no wetland plants. And now people out there, it's bone dry. If there were, they can't survive, but it's jurisdictional because it's a seasonal brook.
Are we sure it's a seasonal brook or is it a drainage brook?
Seasonal drainage ditch instead of a seasonal brook is a determination which might have to be made. It's not on the streams profile that Rob said he looked at.
It's
So
an isolated
it-
land subject to flooding. I mean, what's the definition of this property?
I
What's
think
going
you're
on?
on,
I mean, before we go any further down this road with the Conservation Commission being involved, is this our problem? Or not?
Partially.
Can that be answered with who you're talking to?
Yeah, the engineer.
yeah, I mean, we're still in the preliminary stages, so, but yeah, I think that is definitely.
we would have to get-
option.
We would have to get it. A real wetland scientist to,
Responsibility with that.
And by we, Neil, you mean potentially that the town conservation commission pays because this is not one property owner or the other necessarily
No.
looking for this determination. It's us to determine whether we need and can get involved, correct?
I don't think this is a conservation, I don't think this is our,
We didn't cause it.
Right, well, we not so much cause and blame, but to determine whether we have jurisdiction, as Neil's pointing out, it's a valid point. If we don't have jurisdiction,
No.
then we're done. This is not something we can pursue. But
It's part
if
of
we
what you
need
have
to
to do.
determine that, the question is, do we, the Conservation Commission, want to approve BSC or somebody to come in and do a very limited scope evaluation of that and have a professional wetland scientist say it is resource jurisdictional? I see a thumb down.
So if I may, I mean, the fact that we're questioning if it's jurisdictional or non-jurisdictional, I think that kind of answers the question if this enforcement order should be acted upon. We have, it's Ty and Bond is the engineering firm that we're using. The town is looking at a drainage solution here, so.
but.
As long as you
well,
file.
But, right, the town, if they're looking at a drainage solution, needs to have, as part of this study, determine that, is this jurisdictional? Is this area jurisdictional?
'Cause
So,
the town may need to. come
Under
to
the
us.
state bylaw, under the state WPA.
so I can assure you that we are not going to do anything without making sure that there isn't wetlands delineated. That's gonna be part of this.
Right.
So,
So
yeah,
that will answer our questions.
Okay, so at this point in time, the
I have to
enforcement
be here
order.
with you
Hannah,
at
with
these
the
meetings.
enforcement
I don't
order-
wanna get yelled at, you know?
I mean,
So,
you know,
yeah.
there's a grab the backhoe and a pipe crowd in the town too, so. Yeah, no, there's a grab the backhoe and a pipe crowd, trust me.
Okay.
So I think the point here is that the enforcement order should be at least put on pause, if anything at all, because they're arguing, well, we're arguing jurisdiction, they're arguing everyone has messed up their backyard anyway, so why is it just them?
And
Yeah.
I mean.
So suspending an order of, an enforcement order, is that something that is something we want to see if we can just do in this meeting? Or something that we need to get legal advice on how to suspend an enforcement order, since enforcement orders, just for the record, are almost never issued to start with. So suspending or withdrawing one, I want to do in a legally proper way, so we don't actually still have it in place when no one thinks it is, or have it suspended temporarily if we can't do that legally. Does anybody here feel qualified to speak on that?
I'll look into it.
Do we
Okay. Hannah will look into it and we will discuss at the next meeting potentially whether we can withdraw it or suspend it. And if that information can be relayed to both 17 and 19, obviously 19 is here, but to 17 as well, that's the status of it, as well as the fact that there is an engineering study and town-wide or town-led attempt to address that whole side of Bellstone with a potential solution of some sort, not promising anything yet because we don't know what can be done, but to let them know that if that could be relayed to 17 as well, that would be helpful.
Would the board consider suspending it tonight? And if you feel like you wanna go after them in 6 months from now, you.
I don't know that we can. I don't want to
I'll
say
drive here for
do it
Region
and then
Grafton.
find out we just wasted our time or did something wrong. So I would prefer to wait till the next meeting to come back with that and have Hannah do the research and do it right. But you know where we're coming from with this as far as acting on it. We're not going to be doing anything at this point in time to push the enforcement order.
Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else about Bellstone, we'll move on to a brief
Yeah,
update
on-
with,
Thank you for the information.
sorry.
Or you can join on Zoom for any.
Can I go on Zoom?
Yes, you
Okay.
just, you
That's
let me
my
know.
photograph back is, my photograph of the dam is that? Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw the photograph of the dam. Oh, did you see the photo? Well, this past the photograph.
It's a barrier.
Sounds good. So my client did the way to change the law. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Guys.
I just want to ask the other people in the room, Hannah, if you could ask them if they're there for a particular item.
We were waiting for Lou and he hasn't shown. Is there any consequences to him not showing? To being on the agenda?
This early in the process, the answer to overhearing that is no. We would continue because the applicant gave us notice ahead of time that he was not potentially be able to make the meeting due to technical difficulties and a conflict. If he had not given us any notice, we'd be upset, but we potentially would continue anyway. So we apologize
have
if
to
you've
do
been
it for
sitting there
2
waiting for
years,
that,
trust
but we didn't have
We'll be
any
here.
knowledge till earlier today about this.
We'll be here.
We're not going to hold the meeting up indefinitely about
Is
this.
that
We're going to
the same
continue with a
thing?
couple of items
You know, they're
that
kind
we
of
still
like,
have to discuss briefly, and then we'll move along. I wanted to get a quick update on the 206 mechanic detention basin. There was information, Hannah, was that via email only, or was that in the portal as well, the pictures and so forth?
I think that happened after the portal. I don't
Okay.
think
So there were pictures that were sent, I thought, via
yeah, I think I
Somebody.
forwarded email.
Yes.
via email. Okay. So the
Pictures are good.
Concom members have seen those pictures. The 206 Mechanic Street warehouse has a detention basin that's shared with the property owners on the other side, the paper company. I'm not sure for cleaning that out. It's overgrown completely pretty much and needs to be cleaned out to be maintained. Who is responsible for that? I think we're going to need to do some investigation before we give a go ahead to spend Concom money, or potentially could be paid for by someone else.
No, we
To-
don't spend any money on that.
Clear
Hold
that
on.
out. We don't have that information yet, right, Hannah or Rob?
Yeah, sorry, for 206 Mechanic Street, that's what we're talking about with
Yes.
the basin. Now, my apologies, I just stepped
That's
on
fine. I know
it.
That's
you're
a
out of the room.
privately
Fine.
owned basin.
It is.
But the town's not gonna clean that out.
No, absolutely not. So the
Question
reason
is,
why,
who is?
so the reason why this came
The
up is,
owners.
yeah, the reason why this came up is because the 206 Mechanic Street warehouse, in their order of conditions, they are using the basin that's commonly owned by them. And is it Lindenmeyer, I think, is
Yeah,
the other
Lindenmeyer
building that was
Warehouse.
built there?
Yeah,
Lindenmeyer, when they built that building, they built the basin so it could handle both sites.
there should be an O and M plan on the Lindemeyer property.
I agree. I've actually tried to dig that up today. Couldn't find it on the planning file because that's an old one, but I'm pretty sure it's in our vault. But in the order of conditions for 206 Mechanic Street, there is a requirement that that basin get maintained because it hadn't been, it was noted during the site walk. So I went out there because in that order, they specifically require that there is some work order or something is submitted to the commission. So when I went out there, you can see the photos. There's a lot of trees that are in that basin. There was also a silt blowout that was along the backside. That was before I was here. I don't know the details of that, but you can see the silt actually in that photo really well.
That's a lot. How deep
There-
is it, do you think?
It's probably 1.5 to 2 feet deep. Wow. It's significant, so.
Where did the silt come from? Lindemeyer or 206?
206 when it was being constructed. So the good thing is that I took pictures. There was a previous, I think 2 meetings ago. There needs to be an inspection on that slope and the
Right.
vegetation came out great. There's a lot of riprap that was in. They fixed it nicely. So the actual basin itself now needs attention in order to get an occupancy permit later on down the road. They're not there yet, but they're trying to get ahead of this. So with this, when I walked it with with Arco, who's the builder, they're trying to figure out the best way to maintain this. There's a lot of scrub in there, but there's also a lot of vegetation, and this basin is enormous. It's like I think it's one.
Oh, yeah, they overbuilt that basin
Yeah.
by a factor of 2.
They built it so I think the calculations were each of those sites were completely paved. That's how they
Yeah,
designed it.
it's huge.
It is. I looked on Mass Mapper. It's about 1.8 acres. It's huge. So with that, in order to maintain it, the thought was, well, get rid of the trees, obviously, so there's storage in there. But do you want to rip out the trees and seed it? Or my thought was, and this is up to the commission, I would cut that down at the surface so it can be brush hogged now, like normal maintenance. Because if you start ripping that out on 1.8 acre basin and that, you get the rain from the 206 Mechanic Street and Lindenmeyer, which are now connected to the basin, that could be a pretty nasty mud pit, and it's gonna be tough to grow stuff in there right now at this time of year. So
my thought was, and this is up to you folks, would be to cut the trees at grade, remove them with no machinery. They, Arco already said that they can do it by hand, which is gonna be a lot of work, but oh well. And then to remove all of that silt from the blowout.
By hand,
Yeah.
Sounds like model-based
if
maintenance.
they wanna pay that kind of money to laborers with shovels and buckets.
Well, I'll tell you what, you can get machinery down there to do normal maintenance, but if you wanted to get an excavator or something decent down there to like really clean that out, they would have to most likely take out that riprap apron and then put it back. Cause it is,
What about like a vac truck?
that truck would be hard pressed to get down there.
So Rob, didn't I see a price somewhere in this email?
Yeah, I think,
Yeah,
oh,
they-
24,000?
So they're telling us it would cost them $24,000 to do this and they're gonna pay it, or are they looking for us to pay $24,000?
Oh, no,
For us
no,
to
no,
approve
no.
it.
Yeah, they're just looking to make sure that that this is satisfactory for the condition.
My,
But the stumps stay.
Steve's point was a good one about the stumps regrowing. Is there a way for them to, with an arborist or somebody, wetland scientist, to provide the specifics to put some sort of treatment on the tops of these, brush them with a weed killer or something like that, that would keep those sapling stumps that are brush hogged from
Well, no, we're gonna
back
have,
up again in 6 months?
we're gonna have annual mowing.
Well, that will help too, but I don't know how well mowing will go
No
over tree
Roundup.
stumps as opposed to
No.
brush hog or whatever
Well,
else they'll be doing for maintenance. If we leave that up to them and they keep it down, that's fine.
Yeah, that's the idea, Mike, and actually, not to get too off topic here, but at the next planning board meeting tomorrow night, we're actually updating our stormwater regs to be in compliance with the EPA MS4 permit. A part of that is actually beefing up the maintenance requirements, so this doesn't happen. They're actually, private entities are gonna be required to actually submit O&M work orders annually, which is awesome.
They should be required to do that anyway, but I don't think anybody does.
No,
I'd encourage you all to look as a part of a stormwater management and detention basins at the side of the middle school where the detention basin put in by the state has grown in completely, and there's now a channel that runs down through the detention basin to the outlet at the other end. I'm not sure that thing is functioning as a real detention basin, more of as a partially filled, when there was a lot of rain the other, couple weeks.
Well,
month,
it
whatever
isn't,
that-
and
It was flooded.
I just met with that engineer actually to discuss the remediation for that. You're actually gonna see some improvements to that within.
That'd be good.
A couple months, so.
Way greener than it should be, and that channel that's formed
Didn't
is
get the
kind of
grading right.
disturbing.
It's not the grading, they wrapped filter fabric around the subdrain, which it clogged.
Silted up.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
and-
he does that all the time.
Yeah, and not only that, but the soils underneath, they have not a very good infiltration rate at all. It's pretty much, and like, I saw the picture.
Did they do test pits?
They did, yeah. Look, this was before my time, I was trying
Okay,
to
well,
fix it.
are we talking about the middle school? Or are we talking about mechanics?
Yeah,
I
mechanics.
just wanted to point that
so-
out as a comparison of channelization and maintenance, but not to get off topic. Okay, so we have a recommendation that we don't have an actual vote that we necessarily take. They're just looking to have us say, sounds good to us, thumbs up from the commission.
Correct, and.
It's not
based-
costing us anything. We don't have an approval process per se on this.
Correct, it's just to submit what they want to propose to meet their condition and.
They say where they're gonna, put the brush while they're cutting.
They're gonna remove it off site, so they're gonna chip it in the parking lot into a truck and remove it. They're not putting it like in the basin or anything, chipping it, so they're gonna get rid of it that way.
But we'll have final sign off before they get their permit.
Correct, either
Their
myself,
LOC.
either myself or Hannah will do the site walk, or both of us probably.
So do we need to take an action tonight on
Okay.
this?
So are they removing the silt that got in there?
Yes.
Yes, yep,
That's
so
not in that quote.
I
No,
know I
this is
have.
labor.
Yeah, I know I have an email correspondence with them,
to make sure.
Get
And
that,
they-
you get that in writing.
Yeah, and they know that that can't stay in there based on the sidewalk, but, you know. They will get the final sign off when that's taken out,
So
so.
do we need to do anything tonight, issue a verbal confirmation or anything, or just
Nope,
strictly
nope.
information? Okay. All right.
As long as you guys are okay with it, I can tell them to proceed, because I think they are ready to start the work as of next Monday.
If anybody has any points of contention or concern about it, just speak up now or forever hold your pieces of silt and trees.
I
Will
don't
they
say
be
that it's a
required
little
to-
bit more than normal maintenance, but it's normally covered by their existing permit.
Correct.
And they will be required to conduct annual maintenance.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead,
I would
Neil.
like to, let me just get procedural on this. Do we need to open the hearing for, Lake Street and then close it and, continue it?
I think so. I
That's
was
the
gonna
process
recommend
we
that
do.
be the next step, the next thing we do. So I will accept the
you-
motion to,
No, if you have to open it first.
I know, well, I'm sorry, I'm gonna open the hearing for, continued hearing for notice of intent off Lake Street, Prospect Hill / Prospect Street, sorry, called Prospect Hill Village, construction of 156 unit townhouse development, which will impact bordering vegetated wetland bank, land under water bodies, waterways, bordering land subject to flooding, and riverfront area. Applicants Louis Petrosi, representative is Paul McManus. Neither one have attended the meeting tonight due to a conflict of conflict of schedules and or technical difficulties. So without acting on this in any further way, I will recommend that someone make a motion or accept a motion to continue this to the evening of June 26th at 7 p.m.
How about July 10th?
We can do that too. I will say that I have some concerns about two notices of intents on the same property, but since the applicant is not here, I don't want to speak on that at all. That'd be stepping out of turn. So
I mean, the
we
next
have
one,
potentially some issues about how this is being done. And
we just.
you know, the applicant did state at the last meeting that he was working on gathering more information for us about a sewer line project part of this. And so maybe that'll give them more time. We can put it off to 2 meetings. There's no reason we can't if you
Yeah,
want to do
he's
that.
not here.
Yeah.
That's the pleasure of the commission. Somebody just make a motion. That's fine.
I'll make the motion, Ariane,
To,
to do what you said.
To move to the July.
July 10th.
at 7 p.m. Okay. So we have a motion second.
Guys, we're the best conservation.
Move it.
I'll second.
Second. James, was that James or Don? I don't know who it was.
James.
Okay, thank you, James. So roll call. Anna, I'm sorry, Ariane,
I,
Noel, Neil,
Aye.
James,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Mike O'Haron online, aye, unanimous
That
vote.
wasn't-
Thank you very much for that. We did receive a piece of correspondence late today or earlier today, rather. Lakeview Estates is not on the agenda per se, but they are looking at alternative solutions that won't impact the buffer zone in the wetlands area that was being flooded into people's rain gardens. So we were told that they wouldn't attend tonight's meeting, which they weren't on the agenda anyway, so that's fine. Just letting you know that piece of information. The only other thing we have remaining is the minutes, I believe.
Unfortunately, I had to add some things.
Okay, so can we jump to the minutes?
Go for it.
Okay, so there were 6 meetings worth of minutes that because of various issues we had in the past, we hadn't covered. They were the meeting minutes of, I'll read these off here. March 27th, April 10th, April 24th, May 8th, and May 29th. Those meeting minutes were in various on the portal prior to it being closed down and or sent to us, at least one of them, I think, via an email at one point in time. I don't know what the commission members have had a chance to do. I read through all of them today. Found a couple of typos, which I'm sending along to Hannah. And only one question, which was regarding 0 Maple Street. I forget which hearing, which meeting it was on. I think it was the April 24th one, where in the comments, we commented that the slopes on the back, this is the warehouse, small warehouse project that we were moving along on, that as one of the final conditions, we wanted to make sure that the slopes with the gravel walkways that go down to the wetlands areas were covered with some sort of fabric and seeded. And I don't think they meant over the paths themselves, but the areas around them on the banks. But other than that, everything else to me was small little typos and no other major corrections. Based on what I've just said and what any other commission members have had a chance to review, do you have any other questions about or points about those minutes?
Nope, nope.
Okay, so I will accept a motion to approve all of those minutes as corrected or adjusted by me, which will be sent to Hannah. And there are minor typos as a group. If someone wants to make a motion,
I'd like to make that motion, Noel.
thank you. Second,
Steve, second.
thank you. A roll call vote, Noel,
Aye.
Ariane,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
James,
Aye.
Neil,
Aye.
Michael here online, aye. Okay, thank you, unanimous vote. Now, Hannah, your other additions.
Okay, 42 Silver Lake, if you remember, that was right when I started. I think we gave them our conditions in September. They originally had on their site plan a septic and it failed recently.
Yeah, I
It's
think
not something,
based on the site walk we had today, which is the first time I heard about this, I think they were going to be modifying their septic system to add a new trench. However, it looks like the septic system has failed.
right.
So
it's
they're-
already-
Well, it was an existing septic system that they were going to modify, which I don't really know where, because I figured the Title V report would have said that it was going to fail. Because it was before my time, so.
One would
yeah.
think that Title V would have picked that up.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to
'Cause you got-
find out if the septic system's failing.
Yeah, you got
so.
bubbling crude out there right now?
No.
No, not quite
But they're
yet,
pumping
but
it. He
yeah.
said- He said they're emptying it.
they said
I've seen that.
same
Oh,
here. I have as
Oh,
well.
yeah, it's not, no.
Apparently, in the septic tank, the water was up to the riser.
Oh, that's bad.
So almost,
Almost.
not quite though.
Seen it leaking up through the lawn.
Yeah,
So are they gonna come to us with an NOI for this?
Point being, they're hoping to amend their order conditions because they're now planning to attach their system to the sewer, which is at the base of the road.
Is it gonna involve taking out the others?
Probably.
it would have to be abandoned
Yeah.
for Title V regs.
So. I don't know what his updated site plan looks like, but what he is asking for is to be on the 26th, as long as he gives me the documentation I
If we don't
need.
have anything to look at definitively,
Done.
then there's no sense in doing it, but
Great,
otherwise. I
Done,
think it
get
has
them
to
on
be
the
done.
26th.
Okay,
okay,
So,
next.
have them put in for the 26th, the NOI. Or
I
amendment
have,
rather.
I have pictures for the 2 site visits I did that we're gonna hopefully turn into COCs right now. This is 159 Blackstone. And what they did, I think they're looking to close on this house. It's under agreement right now.
Yeah,
So, my only question is, before we sign it, do I need to request that they keep the fence up until? Or
the silt fence.
yes, until there's actually grass.
Oh, yeah, I think even though that's pretty flat back there, given how close it is to the brook that's right behind there, I think that
The
you want
rail
the silt
fence
fence
is
up.
kind of odd, isn't it?
Why is there only one rail?
Yeah, the post and rail.
Yeah, I would
Is that a
suggest they put the
temporary
silt-
fence. What are they?
It might be because they were still landscaping. Putting the straw underneath it or something, I don't know.
Okay.
So ask
But they-
about
We
that.
gotta sort that out, because that's.
Yeah, there should be a
Okay.
split rail
That's
fence.
half a
that's two.
fence.
Yep, this is why I took pictures, because I didn't even
Yep,
notice that.
yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have
so
any of the front of the building, Hannah? I know we didn't really regulate on the front, but the leach field to the right of the driveway has 2 pipes that stick up. One's like 4 feet high and one's like 2 feet high vertically. Kind of a weird look, but that's on them. That's the front of the building. It doesn't really pertain to this, so never mind. And looks like those are the blueberry bushes we were requesting to be put in.
Yes, and I even
And-
looked at the tags, they said blueberry.
Yeah, okay. And they will have grass or some sort of
The one that they just-
grass cover in between where the straw is.
Looks like they hydro seeded it.
Hydro, yeah.
Driven stream.
Okay, hopefully those sprinklers are running when it's dry out now.
No, that looks, I see the badges, that looks to be good.
Okay, so then the question is, would you like to sign it and I don't give this until they answer those, like, add to the fence, or do we wanna hold off? on this altogether.
Um,
Hold on.
let's hold up.
Okay, the other one, I only took two people's opinions on that.
Well, we can do Santa, just to be clear, we could do a DocuSign with that if they put the rail fence and we don't have to hold them up for another 2 weeks. Okay,
Yeah, we can.
all
I
right.
ran into some problems with it again, but we
Uh-oh.
can figure it out. Okay, this is 8 Monique, looking into, I'm on 8 Monique, looking into 12 Monique. 8 Monique wants to put in a very simple swing set in his backyard, which is the original reason why he came to us. He became concerned about if he was able to, because even though the maps don't show that it's wetlands, he's seeing fern, as you can see, and skunk cabbage and things that would make you think it could be. And there's a slope. And then through conversation, we have also found out that even closer to the wetlands, the neighbor has put in this shed that's very formal, and there's chickens back here, and it's a whole thing, like,
Is there a permit for the shed?
there is.
Why was that done without consult sign off by Concom?
Very good question.
How long ago was that permit issued?
Hey.
Do you know?
No, we have this thing.
They're supposed to sign off on every building permit.
Yeah, okay, you're not talking to the building commissioner here.
So how long ago was the permit issued for the shed? Do we know?
So I need, this was literally 2 hours ago, so I need to.
Okay,
find
research that.
That
That's fine.
record, but I just,
Thank you.
based on 8 Monique's own research, he used to work for a different town, so he kind of knows how this stuff works. He knows there is a permit. I didn't ask him what year.
Oh, okay.
I
I
need
thought
to
you
look
found
into
that
it
out.
more.
Sorry. Okay. So
But
we need to
for
research
sure,
that.
there is no 12 Monique conservation file. There was no.
Right.
You have something to say? Oh, you just.
And
looked at me.
Just for the commission's record, I talked to Hannah about this
So,
earlier. when she did-
so is 8 Monique, is he gonna do an RDA?
So yeah, that was the first part, is what should I advise him to do? Very basic swing set where it's just like he needs to be able to ground it with cement.
Is it already lawn?
Huh?
Is it already lawn or is he?
Where
gonna
he wants to
clear-
put the swing set.
Proposing new clearing of vegetation back there, or is this an already pre-disturbed area?
It's. If you look at this picture, to the right, there is lawn, then there's a dip, and then there's where I'm standing.
Yeah, but where does he
Is
want?
Does he want
He
to
wants to
put swing
put
set?
it in
Where the
the,
ferns are?
so that his kid would have shade.
Yeah, it's gonna, well, I would say do an RDA, but if we already know there's skunk cabbage in front.
Depends on the species of fern, right? If it's wood fern, it's not.
Right, I think an RDA is probably, I think an RDA is,
Yeah, skunk cabbage probably.
RDA is the easy way to go.
Okay,
But if we kind of already can guess the outcome of that.
I can't guess from this.
Yeah,
Skunk cabbage?
I don't see.
Where is it?
Well, they should hire their own wetland scientists to tell
Where
them,
is she knows?
right?
I'm barely awake right now.
Yeah, here's some, there's
She's
some.
not getting any sleep, we can't trust her.
Yeah, I don't trust myself. Yeah,
She hasn't slept right above.
so, 2 months.
Wait, does that take it?
Oh, yeah, I see it.
That looks like it could be.
That could be, yeah.
But we should.
But the rest of it, I can't tell what type of fern that is. You know.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
we should. That's
Yeah.
true.
Okay, so RDA, okay, his follow-up question was, do we have jurisdiction for tree houses? Because does the law protect above, it protects below, but above, and I was like, good question, I don't know.
Oh, that's an
But you're,
interesting.
you need to be.
Is he gonna
below
pull a
the
permit to build a treehouse?
I don't think Bellingham requires a tree house to be
On the
permitted.
disturb zones, access.
And
Okay.
dimension.
He's
That's
gonna,
about-
he's gonna grow it from his yard? No, but I don't think that's how.
But if you hit
Okay.
the plant.
Walking on.
Okay,
I think you walk on anything.
all right, I will let him know
That's
that.
not a,
That's an
that's not a
interesting.
non-permitted activity, walking is always.
He's trying to make an oasis for his kid, I don't blame him.
Yeah.
I'm like, I wanna be your
And
kid.
he's trying to do it the right way. if He's asking about.
Building a treehouse, I'll be his kid.
Yeah.
Just throw up the tires.
Right.
Don't ask any questions.
Last thing,
It's getting late.
I don't have any pictures of it. I went out there like 3 times the past 2 weeks. Kyle went out there to 30 Farm Street after going back and forth, back and forth. They have completed their order conditions. They're trying to close on the house this Friday, which they've pushed multiple times. So, this is the COC for that. Any questions on 30 Farm? Did it look good? Yes.
Good enough for us.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have no questions.
The fence had two.
No offense, they did the post, the other.
And I have the land court certificate number,
So it
so,
is good.
yeah.
Yay.
Yeah,
Oh, that's land court property?
yeah. Yeah, there's some,
Okay.
I don't know,
So do we need to sign on something, Hannah, in the room there? or-
Yeah,
that's.
Okay,
sorry, you won't get to sign it.
that's fine. I can pass on.
Tiny
While,
piece of
while you're
land court
passing
land in
around,
Bellingham.
do need to provide one more piece of information about a hearing that was had yesterday with Judith Schmidt,
It's been
the Mass
adjudicated.
DEP.
The property lines have been
Yep.
adjudicated.
I'm listening, Mike, go again.
Okay, so for the Concom members, there was a meeting yesterday held with Judith Schmidt, myself, another rep from Rebecca from DEP, Paul DeSimone, and a fourth party whose name escapes me. But she was the person that did the wetlands delineation. This is regarding 12/15 Chase Street, where they want to put in a duplex, and we denied this project. So this
Yep.
was the informal hearing by DEP, requested and set up by DEP to hear our side of it. I presented the information, including some input from Cliff Matthews, which was very timely, about the Mass DEP regulations, which give us the Mass General Law, Chapter 44, which give us the right to hire outside consultants and impose and collect fees from applicants that are reasonable for employment, to include scientists, engineers, and so forth. Judith obviously knew that, but I made that point. Mentioned it was a complicated site. There was upland percentages of property, reviewing buffer zone, resource area delineation, not just wetlands line determination, impact of proposed wetlands crossings, and a potential success of proposed wetlands replication sites, as well as the fact that it wasn't even shown on the plans, and Cliff had mentioned this, that they were within a riparian zone. The Charles River runs behind the property, and that wasn't on the original plans. A couple things were brought up by the applicant's rep, Paul, that we had never been presented. They had never been presented with the opportunity to present the plan, and especially in detail. And I contested that, saying we had multiple meetings about this project. The plan was presented in overall detail. We didn't get into very specific detail because we never got approval to do a peer review, which would have given us a lot more information. And so that point was raised, and they are going to potentially review our Zoom meetings, which is a good thing they're recorded, because that'll show clearly that several meetings that we had did cover this project and give them a chance to speak on it and how tight a site it was, et cetera, as well as the fact that we gave them the opportunity to accept the fee that was proposed by Matt Burns and BSC, and they refused to do so. The other point that Paul tried to make on behalf of the applicant, I believe, was that we exceeded the 21 days from the end of June, when, as Ann Matthews, one of her last acts was to communicate with Paul about this project. So it was in the end of June of 2023 that we let more than 21 days expire before we put them on the hearing, which is true. However, Judith pointed out, as Schmidt pointed out from DEP, they would not be considering that because they had their opportunity to contest that point, and that time period passed. So he was shot down not once, not twice, but at least 3 times, having said the same point. So what will happen now is they will either uphold our denial, or they will issue a superseding order of conditions for the project with conditions that would have to be spelled out by DEP. And we will hear about that along with any other requests for info that they might have or questions. But I think we stuck to the points that we had. We had the right to do this. We needed peer review. We lost 80 years of experience during this time period from the time the application was made. We didn't, because I was asked that by Judith. Do we have anybody else that we could have called upon? I mentioned Neil and I have some experience, but not enough to review this and act on it without the BSC consultants. And we're doing this for other projects too, because we don't have the experience and we need the consultants. And she seemed to accept that on face value, but we'll see where it goes from there. So that's the update on that Chase Street. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, so if there's nothing else on the agenda, Hannah, anything else?
Nope.
I'll accept a motion to close the hearing, close the meeting of,
Motion to adjourn.
who is that?
Neil.
Neil, and second,
I would like to second Noel.
thanks, Noel, appreciate it. All in favor, I will ask for a roll call last time. Noel,
Aye.
Ariane,
Aye.
no, Steve.
Nay.
No, okay, all right, Steve, what else do you want to discuss? Neil,
Aye. Aye.
James
I.
and Zon.
Aye.
Michael Heron online, aye. Okay, unanimous vote. Thank you, everybody. Go Celtics if they're still playing.
Thank you.